Okay, now we're going.
Okay, this morning, I will welcome everybody to Iron County Commission this morning, December 10th. This morning, we're going to start out with an opening invocation as well as the Pledge of Allegiance. I've asked a good friend, Eric Grimm, he's a man of many hats, master investigator, and also the president of the Cedar Stake in Cedar City, to offer us an invocation, followed by Sergeant Dave Evans of the Cedar City Police Department to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our dear Heavenly Father, on this beautiful winter day, we express our gratitude and our love and our appreciation for the beautiful place that we call home. We're thankful for this moisture we've received. We're thankful for the blue skies and the warmer temperatures that we're enjoying today. We're thankful, Father, for those who serve in our community in a variety of functions and in a variety of places, and we're thankful for the time and the energy that they devote to their responsibilities, particularly those in this room today. We're grateful, Father, for the many people in the county and in our communities that take care of one another and watch over and serve each other and tend to their needs. And we're thankful that we have been blessed to be in this great land of America for the freedoms that we are privileged to be part of, and those that protect us in all forms. We are grateful again, Father, for the moisture we've received, and we pray that Thou might bless us with more. Our needs are great, and we pray for that continued moisture and snowpack on the mountains. We ask for those who are in attendance today that they might be blessed for their efforts and for their service. Please continue to guide them and help them along in their stewardships so that they will always be mindful of the many people in the communities that count on them. We ask for a blessing on those that struggle or who are in need, and pray that their needs might be made known to their neighbors and their friends, that we might better minister to them. We're again grateful for all that we have, and express these thoughts and these feelings in our love in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. It was good to start the morning off right. I appreciate your attendance, and you can leave now.
Be gone.
Be gone with you.
You're welcome to stay.
Go back to work. All right. We've got several stacks of minutes to approve.
Okay. I move that we approve the minutes of November 20. I'm just going to do them all at once.
Excellent.
Of November 26, 2018. The minutes of November. You got them all down there? Okay. Also, the minutes of November 22nd, 2016. There's a couple of months here that let slip through. The minutes of June 8th, 2015. And the Iron County Commission minutes of October 26, 2015.
So I wasn't around in 15, was I?
You were not.
I don't know that I can approve the 15 minutes.
I think procedurally you can.
Mike,
Okay.
are you okay, Mike? Okay, he says we're good, so you're good.
Great. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, those minutes are approved.
Oh,
I'll write my name on the one.
Who said the prayer again?
Eric Grimm.
Thank you.
Dale.
Did that still not work, Jeannie?
Morning, Steve.
Well, we'll move ahead with department reports. Chad Ney with Building, Zoning, and Planning is asked to be excused this morning.
Oh, do you want to talk about Commissioner Brinkerhoff?
Oh, yes, I do. We're going to excuse Commissioner Brinkerhoff this morning. He is ill. He mentioned going to the Instacare and then trying to show up, but he may or may not. He's kind of on his deathbed this morning, so we'll excuse him this morning. Steve, you're up next.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I would like to give you a Christmas present this morning. So pay close attention. Budget's on track. You've seen this list before, Commissioners. I'll just talk about the yellow ones unless you have questions. 7700 West, the Lake Road. Thank you. We have a prison crew building fences. I appreciate that very much.
Excellent.
There is in your packet here, I've written a letter for the Iron County crushing for the budget year 2018 and 2019 to award that crushing to a low bidder. You have a copy of the tabulation on the very last sheet of the package which I just gave you. I think you've seen that previously. I was very pleased to get such a good bid from Susan Martin at $5.38 per cubic yard. That's a good one, and it may be quite a while before we see one that good again. The bidders or the contractors are all telling us that it needs to be higher. So I have contracts here today, which John, I believe, has on the agenda at some point for you to sign for that crushing. Sunset Subdivision, RS 2477 Roads. I believe you know the state of Utah has had an additional inventory of all our roads with a GPS unit on the top of a vehicle that rotates in 360 degrees. Tyler Farling has been doing that. He's completed all of the roads in Iron County. He needs an office to download all that field information to a computer and a software or a CD or a thumb drive or whatever, but he's requested that of me, and then he said, Steve, don't take that too seriously. The governor himself is going to make that request to give us an office, if the county would give them an office for temporarily just to get that work done. And I'm thinking he needs it for about 60 days. Talked with Lester and Chad about that, and they said they'd find a place for him.
Great.
Sunset Subdivision, we've been talking about the assessment area out there. They have as yet not completely given those private roads to the county. They're trying to figure out exactly how to do that, where title resides with those roads. As soon as they can give those to us, Reed and I are set to move forward with the assessment area advertisement in the paper and start that process so all of those lot owners get to know exactly what's coming and what it's going to cost them.
So they haven't voted the final vote yet then? You're still in the process of...
Well, they believe they have, Commissioner.
Okay.
They've had two or three votes. And
I knew that.
And every time they've had questions, but they've had a majority. They haven't had, and with the new assessment, doesn't take a majority, 40% can kill a project with the new assessment area.
Really?
This is the good news. The Parowan EWP Now remember, we had $2.5 million, $2 million from NRCS basically, and $500,000 from Iron County to make our match. It was actually $633,000, 1.9 million. But then NRCS came up with some more money. But if you look at the the fourth page, you will see exactly what the federal government paid us. They paid us $2,546,520. That's the top figure on that page. The others are payments that Iron County made to individuals that helped us complete that work. And guess what? You have $195,408.33 remaining, which we basically earned for you. That's in your drawer.
Excellent.
Now I need to say, don't spend it. We may need a little bit of that when we do the Paraguna EWP. With the $1 million over there, 25% of that is local match. We're hauling riprap from the landfill to that area to make our match.
Okay.
But I don't think we're going to be able to get enough riprap for that match on that project. We'll need a little bit of cash. But
Okay.
I think
Well,
that's a
this
pretty
one-
good Christmas
that-
present.
Well, yeah, plus the great bid on the crushing. You're giving us 2 today. Keep it up.
Good, good.
One question. So that 195, does it have to be spent on projects here and related to the Bryan Head fire?
As I understand it from NRCS, that's your money.
Oh,
You can do what you want.
Well, technically, we already spent it, but we didn't. We would have, we had, hauling costs, truck costs, employees, all that was absorbed in our match, in our in-kind.
yeah, that makes
Right.
sense.
Curtis has been digging in your Parowan pit for 6 months, and that's what made this money for us. If you want to know, there's been 12 payments that have come over that project. There's a spreadsheet behind that, and the very bottom number on each one of those payment itemizations is what we've been paid. We still haven't received as yet payment number 12, which is at the very bottom of the sheet, but I'm sure NRCS will come through with that. And when we have that, everything will be as I've showed you about this page, how much they paid us and how much we paid out.
Excellent.
So that covers that. Paraguna, we've talked about that. The Forest Service, the roads people called. They would like to meet with us on the 9th of January at 2 o'clock in our upstairs conference room in the Justice Center. Preston, I hope you can put that on your schedule.
The 9th? 2 o'clock?
The 9th of January,
On my calendar.
2 o'clock.
Okay. Is that gentleman new to Forest Service? He called
I had
me.
not met him before. I asked him if Steve O'Neill and Jake Dodds would be at the meeting, and he said yes.
Good. Okay.
I'm assuming you're pretty well up to speed on the locks, on the gates, on the Upper Basin Road to the Kolob Reservoir. Mike has written a letter. We've met, we've talked. I guess the best thing I can say is that's in the hands of legal right now. And I think we need to be connected at the hip with Washington County. I think there's strength and unity there. But exactly where that's going, I don't know, Mike. Maybe you want to...
Can I jump in there for just a minute? I spoke with one of their deputy county attorneys. She mentioned that after the new year, legal counsel for the property owners wanted to meet with their county commission. I suggested that this county commission, the Iron County Commission, meet at that same meeting. Surely Iron County and Washington County can disagree on what they want to do with the road. I don't know that makes a lot of sense. I think if Iron and Washington County want to keep that road open, they should work together to do it. It doesn't make a lot of sense for us to abandon the road and they keep it open, because then it wouldn't be a straight shot, right? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I feel like, or I would suggest, I think you guys need to be on the same page one way or the other. Either you vote to abandon that road or decide that you want to keep it open. But I think you should be coordinating with them. And so their deputy county attorney was going to say the same thing to their county commission. And maybe when they have that meeting scheduled, we can participate. I think that'd be a good idea.
And did you have a date yet, or did you say?
No, they said that after the new year.
Thank you.
In the meantime, just one more point. The letter that I wrote stated that we expected the lock to be removed immediately. I believe the letter that Washington County wrote earlier requested, maybe not that quickly, but requested something similar. If they do not comply with that, we need to decide what the county's going to do. I believe it's a road that has been maintained and for which we receive funding for. Is that right?
Absolutely. It's been on our B system since we built the Kolob Reservoir, which was a long time ago, in the early 60s or late 50s. I remember coming home that way in a station wagon many times.
So we need to...
We met with Neil, Mike, and I, and he. Neil was with us for 42 years, you know that. He remembers it every single year he was there, so we know it goes clear back to the 60s. Without question, we've put in cattle guards, we've hauled gravel, we've repaired the damage when we had flooding issues so it could stay passable. A lot of people have used it. 3 different individuals have told me about how concerned they are, and I've said, please write me a letter. Give me some good information that I can use to keep it open. But as yet, I haven't heard a letter or received a letter back from any of those 3.
Would you continue to encourage them? It would be good for us to have those at that meeting. But my opinion is, if at this point, if they lock it, we need to go up there and give them notice and cut the lock. I mean, until this is settled, they shouldn't change it in any way.
Amen.
And that was what I said in the letter, is that, you know, they could ask the commissioners to abandon the road, and maybe you do, maybe you don't. But in the meantime, they should not be closing what's a public road.
Right.
So we need to, you know, determine whether or not we're going to go up and cut the lock off and open that road back up.
But as of now, they haven't. Have they locked it?
It's still locked.
It's still.
It is locked now.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess I can't make a motion because it's not an agenda item, but...
Well, I don't know that you need to make a motion. I think you could just direct your whoever.
Well, it'd
to
have to
go
be
do
the
that.
sheriff, excuse me.
Okay.
I would think, or if it was the road department, we'd want a sheriff deputy to be with him, with them, so...
If they don't unlock the other side, there's only a mile. I mean, we take our lock off, our road only goes in a mile.
And that's to
Understanding
the...
is that there were 2 locks. One that was clearly in Iron County. The other one was right on the border with Iron and Washington.
If Washington doesn't take theirs off, that's what I'm saying. You're not. It's not like you're going to get to go along. You're not going to drive a long ways before you hit the other gate.
So we need to talk to Washington.
But
Is there a broader philosophical point of taking the lock? I mean, it's not without precedent in Iron County, and we have in the past made efforts to keep roads open.
why wouldn't we have the authority to take off the second lock?
It's in Washington County.
I thought it was, well, is it
One's in
clearly in Washington
Isn't
County?
it
or
right
is
on the line?
We don't go all the way to the other gate.
We don't.
So from the gate that we want to take the lock off,
Uh-huh.
we go in like a mile.
Okay.
And then there's another gate, which I haven't been to, is in Washington County. So that's what I'm saying. If you go there, not that I'm not wanting to take the lock off, I'm just, if we go up there and take it off, you're really not going anywhere.
Okay. Well, I guess we can work with them again on that too.
Okay.
Great.
Next item would be number 12, Commissioners. NRCS, we had put in another application to get money to take the north leg of Coal Creek past the regional wastewater treatment plant. But Lance told me the feeling of NRCS was, given that we had the Parowan EWP, the Paraguna EWP, and the Parowan drainage basin operations and watershed from Buckskin clear to Summit, potentially $17 million coming in the next 3 years, that they felt like Iron County had enough right now. So they didn't give us that additional money to take the Coal Creek north leg past the wastewater treatment plant. We'll continue to apply for that each year. Any questions?
Not yet.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Dale's on his way. The doctor told him he wasn't contagious.
Oh, good.
Because Doc said I'm on the downhill. That sounded bad, but anyway, downhill was not contagious, so he'll be over here.
Steve, did you have one more copy of those notes that I could have for my... Thank you, sir. For later. It'll be, I bet it's 1:30. Page 8.
Preston, you're up. Thanks. Good.
Thanks, Preston.
Thanks, boss. There we go.
Good morning. So I just put things that we're currently working on, and then kind of a look ahead. It's not overly exciting, I guess. But, so we placed the gravel on 4000 North, which is also called the Rollo Lane. We'll be able to get that chipped in the spring. Working on the Vandenberg Road. Currently, we got about 4 miles of the subgrade built, and I want to chip 2 miles of it that we built last year. I like to let it sit a year and make sure that it settles, and any drainage issues, if we get any storms, we'll be able to see if we have some drainage issues. And then Steve talked about the gravel. That was a really good bid, we think. It seemed like it was, I was expecting more in the $6 area, so. Ready to do some snow plowing if we can get some snow. A few roads that we striped is the Burl Highway. We did about 7 miles there. 5700 West, we just restriped it, freshened it up, and then Highway 91 between Summit and Parowan, we freshened those up. And then looking ahead, you got any questions, I guess?
Not at this point.
Looking ahead, so we'll start bidding. I'll get the bidding out the chip and the asphalt and the chipping oils this spring. 7700, where the prison crew's fencing now, that's a road we'll get ready to, I hope to chip this year, but we'll start hauling on that hopefully in the next few weeks, maybe after Christmas.
So the subgrade's completely done. It's just your final coat.
No, it needs to be built. The subgrade needs to be built, but there's not a lot to build on it. It's just kind of a widening, and there's a couple pretty good dips that we'll need to bring up and put a couple culverts in just for drainage, but it shouldn't
Pack
be
that well, and it should be fine for chipping next year.
Yeah, it should be shouldn't be a big deal.
Good.
And then I have 2 other little short roads that are in between asphalt. They're off of 5700. One of them is 1000 West and one of them is 1400 West. One's a 1/4 mile and one's a 1/2 mile long that we were gonna just, all we need to do is haul some gravel on each one of those, and we'll get them ready to chip also.
That's off of which west?
Off of 5700 West, which would be the belt route. And then just keep working on the subgrade out on Vandenberg Road for kind of the rest of the winter. If we have any other issues pop up, we'll go take care of those. You have any questions?
Sounds great.
No.
Hey, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Are you planning, Preston, are you planning on being around for the last item on the agenda?
Yeah, what time do you, think, I mean, you want to send me a text when it's within an hour?
Well, like I told you on that text, we may get it around noon. If not, it'll be early this afternoon. But
Okay.
we should move through this agenda pretty quickly. We hope.
We're going to do our best.
Well, I'll just come back at noon. How's that sound?
All right. If it's looking earlier, we'll get a hold of you. Come on down, Bruce.
Thanks. I'm gonna leave one for downhill guy. So he can see me again.
Sir, appreciate it.
Thank you for letting me be here. The first one, just this commission meeting paper. My budget's good. There was a couple of revisions there, but they should have been done, taken care of. I talked to Dan last week and everything was done. It was just 4 additional cans.
Right.
That was on the collection budget. Our new garbage truck got here and it works great. We love it. There's been a couple of issues, but nothing major. It's smooth and fast. And then we received the 938 cat loader and the D6 dozer to replace the compactor, and they're both in Parowan landfill right now. So they both work good. Thank you. And we should be receiving our new compactor the end of this week or the first of next, somewhere right in there. I talked to Bo on Friday, and they got to ship it in pieces, so it's so large that I don't know if it might be a couple weeks before it's running. And then when I leave here, I'm going to go meet with Betsy and go over the applications to replace Wade Brush. He's getting married and moving to St. George, so he's good help. We hate to lose him, but we
He
understand.
didn't stay very long, did he?
No, and we wished he would have.
He's a good man, it seems.
He is good help, yeah.
A woman will change your life quickly, won't it?
Yes, yes it will.
Mostly for the good.
Yes, it will. And then all our equipment seems to be in good order, working fine. This next page is just a snapshot of where we are today, 12/10/2018, compared to 12/10/2017. You can see on there, item 1 that says Class 1. There was 20,000 transactions this year, and last year there was only 19,000. However, there's less material in them transactions. And this Class 1 is just the household trash that goes in the top pit. But the total amount, we're down 560 ton in household, but we're up 1,703 ton in construction and demolition. And then our total tonnage is up 1,140 ton. That just kind of gives you a snapshot where we are. But just looking forward to 2019. And as you remember, from 2016 to 17 was the highest jump we've ever had. So we continue to grow a little teeny bit now, but last year I think we was at like 6% growth in landfill tonnage.
On that one?
Huh?
Did you calculate the percent on this one this time?
I didn't.
That's
So
Leveling off a bit, but still growing.
yeah, still coming up, especially in construction and demolition, 1,700 ton. That's quite a bit. And there was 7,000 transactions this year and only 6,900 last year. 7,700, so almost well, that's 800. 800 people, 800 different people came in that didn't last year, so our little community's growing. It's nice. Seems steady. You have any questions?
That's, just knock on wood on that last one. All our equipment's working well at this time.
Yeah, we'd like that.
That's great.
It's kind of a first for a long time, but thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. I don't see Dr. Blodgett. Let's see.
I saw him last night.
Chad's not coming.
Chad won't be here.
Chad's out. Well,
Take a long recess unless somebody.
There'll be a newly elected official meeting on January 2nd, right in this room at noon. Judge
Little.
will come and preside over the swearing in of all the newly elected officials, so that's kind of exciting. I asked him if he'd come slum it with us. He consented to swear us in, so.
That's at noon, right?
Yeah, January 2nd at noon.
Right. I'm gonna have to slough chamber board meeting.
Oh.
They offer lunch.
wanna
Do
be-
you offer lunch?
Yeah, if you're buying.
You want to keep your job?
Yeah. No kidding.
You might have to quit. January 2nd, 12 noon.
Noon o'clock, yep. But we'll have a goodly number.
How many?
Let's see.
Offset.
Myself,
Well,
Commissioner Blake. We'll have Chad Dotson and Ken Carpenter. We'll have Dan Jessen. Who else will we have?
All cousins.
Commissioner Cousins.
Commissioner Cousins.
Doesn't count. So. Or we got the 3 offset. We don't.
Yeah.
First time we won't have 9 or so.
Yeah. Yep. So. Carrie Jeffries was sworn in last week.
In the room.
She wanted to get paid. So we took care of that.
That's right.
Yeah, we took care of that. So.
Great. Anything else that needs to? Okay. Well, we'll take a break for 25 minutes. If Dr. Blodgett comes, we'll hurry and reconvene and let him say his piece.
I think we could discuss for 20 minutes.
I'm ready when you are, Commissioner.
I was like, okay, I'm down with this.
Okay, we are back up and running. It is a couple of minutes after 10. We have kind of a marathon agenda today, so we're going to get on it and move as quickly as possible. So item number 1 on the 10 o'clock calendar is a presentation of the 2019 budget by Dan Jessen, our benevolent auditor.
Benevolent. I do have a presentation. Should I put it here? Or
Yeah,
you
go
want-
ahead.
Power that device on.
Yeah, let's get you this.
You're a rebel.
Want to be able to not escape through that area.
Jeannie, if you need to escape, duck.
We have egress. We have 2 methods of egress for the commissioners.
I'll go, if there's a fire, I'll go right over the top.
Yeah, I'll my old vaulting abilities. See some moves that I haven't made in years.
You just roll over
Fire.
it. You don't have to necessarily vault it.
I'll just so you know, it'll probably be right over the top of you. Probably won't even deviate from the straight out course.
I think it's coming
All
up.
right, we're farming now.
We're farming.
Like ground bales.
A round bale's better than. It seems like they wouldn't stack very good.
They don't. You can't ship them anyway. They have their purpose. Yeah.
So if you're just gonna kind of have a business where you feed them and stuff.
They're not. A lot of guys like in the Midwest. Some guys just leave them out there. You know, they do their corners where they don't farm. You know, because there's so much. Around.
yeah.
You see them all over the place.
I'm down for that.
They need them for the cows.
Yeah.
They go grab one.
Well, you just have like a
Yes.
big single spear that they spear them in the middle with.
Yeah.
Well, and somebody was telling me they're big enough that you'd never buck them by hand, so you don't hurt your back.
Oh, that's
too
the way
much.
my big bales are. Yeah, that's me. Yeah. And Brent Hunter
That's
bales.
probably why my back is not great from all that hay hauling.
Oh.
Get hot and they burn it. Brand new
Yep.
bale.
Oh, no kidding.
The trick.
Corn stalks are pretty
Oh,
hard.
it's coming up. It's fine.
Out on a brown bale.
I think. While it's coming up, John, the trick. Everybody thinks it's in the arms, but it's all in the it's all in the knees. All in hay. It's all in the knees. Lower body.
I did it for too long.
John, I'm afraid I got multiple screens. Or no, I saw. Oh, there we go. Now we're talking. And
Technology's great when it works.
the problem with this
Yeah,
computer is
you're
that the format for the screens is slightly off. We're good. It'll be up. I should have, while we were sitting here during our downtime, I would like to apologize to everybody.
Do
Need to go to my computer. Right here.
Windows E.
There's
Oh,
Dale.
we're going. It's
Dipper.
coming.
Grace us with your presence.
I've just been sitting here waiting for Dale. That's you guys thought I was booting this up. I was actually just waiting for Dale.
Yeah. Glad you made it to your last meeting, Dale. Hope you feel better.
Sean, quit whining, go do your work.
Hey.
That's what I get at home every time I get a sniffle. No sympathy. No sympathy at home.
Especially.
Okay, I believe we're about ready to get going on this budget. And just for everybody's record, this has been on display, both the 2019 budget that I'm about to present in my office for the allotted time. It has been noticed in the papers, and I will not be going over a line by line. That's why I put it in my office, but anybody is welcome to come by, and I will go by line, answer any questions that are there, and that's always available. My goal here is to provide the general outlook and what's going on with the budget, hit some of the high points, and try to save everybody's sanity.
Expect everything to be just like that.
Sorry, we should have done this earlier, huh?
Blame it on Bill Gates.
Blame it on Bill.
He's got enough money. He can take it.
There you are.
Ooh. Okay. Everybody can rest at ease. There are no tax increases or tax bonds anticipated in the budget, and that's always a good thing. I imagine the room would be a lot more fuller if there was. Approximately $1.7 million in capital fixed asset acquisitions, including vehicles. That's actually a pretty typical year. A lot of some large equipment purchases in the road department and stuff, again, which is pretty typical. But we are doing that without doing any tax bonds or issuing any bonds, just regular general obligation bonds. We're not issuing any new debt this year. As Steve referred to in his meeting, it's not in the budget, but most likely we'll, in the 2019 year, we'll open the budget and add this. We're hoping to get this a good chunk of this $17 million NRCS for work in the Parowan Valley, and I anticipate opening in the budget and putting that in once that is a known quantity and everything is signed. We know it's going to be there. Sorry, thought I had moved on. What's that?
Nicole, can you hear back there?
You want me to talk louder?
Yeah.
Your ears have got some.
Old and deaf and blind and fat.
It's his last one. You've got to make it good for him.
Other budget highlights in the budget is a 1.5% cost of living adjustment, and that is in the same year that Social Security Administration is doing I understand it was a 2.8%. The idea behind a cost of living is to try to keep employees whole as inflation happens, and we know right now we're in an inflationary state. It just costs more to buy a gallon of milk and everything else that we have to buy. So I know that sometimes the public looks at these as raises. I don't, especially when it's a small amount, a 1.5%. I mean, the economy. I mean, if inflation, there's a target inflation rate. It's a healthy way to for an economy to work. And if we don't do cost of living adjustments, we actually the buying power of our employees goes down, and effectively they have a harder time buying stuff. So the commissioners decided to do this, and that is contemplated in the budget. We are standing pat on.
Dan mentioned that's the aggregate divided by the number of employees, so everyone gets the same. 1.5. You're looking dismayed.
Yeah, because it's in there as a 1.5%. So everybody gets 1.5% of what their wage is. That's the way it's put in there as of right now. So
I thought we agreed to take the aggregate divided by the total employees, so everyone got the same thing.
that's not the way
Okay, go
it
ahead.
is. But if you want to change it, and you guys want to talk about it and change it, but it's in there right now as just a traditional cost of living.
I thought we did that. Go ahead.
Okay. There was a number of requests for additional employees, and those were not granted, with one exception in Maria's department, where the new employee will be paid for by reducing her advertising promotion budget. Specifically, she's getting a videographer, which she's been spending a lot of money on the creation of ads, and so this is kind of a self-funded thing. So even though the cost of living it does cost quite a bit of money, the decision was made to hold the line, if you will. Adding employees is very expensive, so we have to be kind of careful in doing that. Budget highlights. I probably should have had, at the end, I have a slide that shows the difference in budget year over year. I'm going to describe that right now because here's where it is a good point to talk about it. 2018's budget was just a hair under $50 million, and that includes transfers and all that stuff. 2019's budget is actually about $4 million less than that. And if you look here at the budget comparison by type of fund, it tells the story. If you look at the capital projects fund there in the middle, you'll see that the green was 2018 and blue is 2019, and it's just about that $4 million difference. Bottom line is we're not doing any large capital projects expansion. We were building the courthouse, wrapping up the public safety building and all of that in 2018, and in 2019 we don't have any of that happening. Some stuff that I just think is interesting. We don't always look at these things. Gives you a little bit of a taste of the total size of the budget by department. I don't have every last department because there's some that don't have a department head or are inconsequential, but this just gives you an idea of what we spend our money on in Iron County. The first two, as you know, are both public safety. We spend almost $10 million of that total budget in public safety, followed by roads, tourism, landfill, IT, assessor, attorney, fire, and so forth. But I just think that's really interesting information. The bulk of the administration, which is where we do a lot of the county duties, are actually a very small part of the budget. The budget is mainly driven by salary. As government, a good majority of what we do is the people that we have, which is why personnel issues are always so important and hotly contested, because that's really what we do. We don't make widgets. We do build roads and a few things, but by and large we have employees that do things. And this is how the salary looks by category: public safety versus administration, public works, attorney in the courts, facilities, and other. Again, I think that's just interesting information. This is a 2018 versus 2019 personnel, operations, capital, allocations, and transfers. You'll see that personnel went up. You're seeing the effect of, this is year over year, you're seeing the effect of the mid-year raises and corrections that was done, and also the COLA factored in. Operations fell a little bit, capital fell a little bit. This is a distribution of the total budget by fund. To give you an idea of the relative size of the funds, the general fund, as we know, is the biggest, as it is in most municipalities and counties, followed by the special revenue. That's actually a combination of all of the special revenue funds, tourism, the ICC, DNR. That one is not really something we think of significant, but a lot of money flows through it, and library and health and all of those special revenue funds are in there, tourism and so forth. Municipal services as an individual fund is the next largest, followed by the road fund, assessing, collecting, enterprise funds. In a city, enterprise funds are a good chunk of their budget, and in the county it's not as big of a deal. This was the slide I referred to earlier, just the general size of the budget falling, 49 million to 45 million. In summary, 2019 looks to be a good year for Iron County. We're starting to see some volatility in the economy. As a result, I tempered my forecast of revenues. You know, it's really interesting to look at a linear progression of something like, say, sales tax, and it's tempting to continue to project that with the historical growth trend line. We're seeing the economy. I watch the stock market daily, and it's been red for quite a while now. The past week, we've erased all of 2018's gains, and there's lots of storms going. Having said that, Iron County is really financially strong, and I'm just glad that we're in a good position. If the economy really turns down, it doesn't tend to affect us that much. What it does affect is things like building permit revenue, our sales tax potentially could fall, although it rarely does. It takes something along the lines of the Great Recession in 28, 29, 2010. We actually saw sales tax dip and then climb back. Generally speaking, county or government revenues tend to very slowly grow. The bigger problem is usually that they don't grow fast enough to keep up with the inflation and our costs that grow. And if you're in a growing county, you have to go through those uncomfortable growing pains of adding an employee in a department here and there, and it's tough to manage the growth. But financially, we're strong. Like I said, I did temper my expectation on the forecast of revenues, but I feel good. Despite the salary increases in the COLA, we have balanced funds without having to appropriate money. With the exception of the Municipal Services Fund, we're appropriating money in order to balance the fund in that fund, and mainly that's due to one-time purchases, both in that fund and in the road fund, because the road fund does not sustain itself. It has to be helped out by the Municipal Services Fund. Anyways, my point is we're not pulling money out of the bank in order to balance the budget. We're balancing it with the revenues that are coming in, and I've been fairly conservative in projecting those revenues. So that is the budget in a nutshell. I had some media people poking around for some juicy details, and it's really kind of a boring budget this year. There's not a lot of exciting stuff that's happening. 2018, there was a lot more going on, but that's my presentation. I can go into any specific detail that any of the commissioners have. We'll turn the time over to the public, and I'll stay at the lectern, or I'll stay nearby in case there's any questions that need to be answered. And then you guys will have a chance to make any changes you want or adopt it.
I think it was just a straight across 1.5. Equal. No, not equal. Just
1.5% of their that's the way we figured it over there.
So you're okay with where it is then?
Okay. Chair declares public hearing open on the 2019 budget. Recognize Mr. Washburn.
Thank you. I did take a few minutes to talk to Mr. Jessen about our budget, and one thing that always irks me a little bit is, again, we have $7,500 going to the American Lands Council, for which we don't get much in return. When you think that an organization which we do contribute to, like UAC, we only spend about $20,000 on a year, and that's returned to us many times over. And I think that I just wanted to express my displeasure with that portion of the budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question, did we ever decide to do that to American Lands, or did we just appropriate $7,500? Decide which one of the many groups to fund it with? Did we ever plug it into that?
I think the latter. So we still need to, that we do have that appropriated for lobbying groups. We'll have to make that final decision.
Not necessarily for.
We had that discussion one day and something happened. We didn't finish it, but I think we need to leave the 7,500 there. For
yeah, that's when Bruce looked at was asking about that. I looked it up, and I wrote American Lands Council, but I remember that discussion you guys mentioned, maybe that you'd throw the money in possibly a different direction, but I don't remember there ever being a decision made.
Decided we'd appropriate that because we got half a dozen different groups all trying to do the same thing. So Bruce, that isn't quite accurate. Someone may say it on the budget that needs to be corrected, but we did appropriate that amount of money.
Technically, it's
or one of the
money is put in a line item called contracted services. So it doesn't have to be spent at American Lands. That just is where we have historically done it.
Is that something you would like to have an agenda item on? I mean, that's not, generally that's an administrative decision.
I should in the new year. We need to evaluate that a little bit more.
Do you want to have it right at first, or do you want to get into the new year meeting?
Into the new year. We've got a new commissioner coming on and everything, I think.
Yeah, let's do that, and we can kind of get him up to speed.
clarify, Bruce. Not clarify for you.
Any other comments for public hearing? Okay, Chair will declare public hearing closed. What do we got for public account, for public appointments? Okay, that's what I was making sure I wasn't missing something. So, public hearing closed. We will move on to...
Oh, you need to adopt the budget. Resolution adopting the budget.
That's coming up next.
Okay, sorry. I thought you were moving on to the 18. I was like, no.
No. Moving on to item number 3, Resolution 2018-13, adopting the 2019 final budget.
It's your last meeting, Dale, so.
If I can get a call for a motion.
Okay.
I move that we approve Resolution 2018-13, adopting the 2019 final budget as just presented.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That has been approved. So, moving on to item number 4, presentation on the 2018 budget amendments.
Okay, I'll be a little bit more succinct on this. The 2018 budget, this will be the final budget adjustment unless we have a emergency meeting to adjust it once more. Let's hope that doesn't need to happen. We try to you try to see the best you can into the future and see where things are going to land. If you're under in a department and it goes over budget, then we get to answer to the state auditor as to what happened. So it's always rough because you have departments that are deciding last minute to spend what's needed, and they're pretty good to work with us. But the majority of the things on the budget adjustment. I should start this thing once in a while so we don't have to deal with this. Huh.
Computer doesn't get used very often. So.
That's the problem. I apologize. This is not too easy to see. Let's go to full screen mode.
Also, Dan, it's not cutting it off on the other screens. So.
What do you mean it's not cutting it off?
Some of the menu was gone on yours, but
oh yeah, it's just something to do with these TVs. And I apologize, you can't see much there. I know it's hard to see. I'm going to talk about just some of the highlights. The majority of this stuff has all been discussed, vetted, and voted on in prior commission meetings. For example, $130,000 build out in the jail was not the amount was not known. It was not put into the mid-year adjustment, so that's in there. $515,000 corridor preservation funds being appropriated for 2 projects in Cedar, the Cedar City Westview project and the railroad land purchase, combined about $515,000. Again, already dealt with. $35,000 Festival Hall roof repair was talked about. Combined $350,000 spending of the insurance money that was received due to the compactor that was burned in the landfill. Bruce reported on that earlier. We bought a loader and a dozer. And even though that's money that's new, in fact, Bruce is like, what do you mean you got to do a budget adjustment? We got the money from the insurance company. The revenue has to come in, the expense has to go out. The garbage truck and garbage cans, $291,000 garbage truck, $30,000 garbage cans. We were planning on buying garbage cans next year. The decision was made to buy them at the end of this year because we were out and just needed to be done. So next year, fixed assets purchases from the collection department will be virtually nil. This year, we were hoping to hold off on the garbage truck purchase and get by one more year, and then things got pretty desperate in the middle of the year. We were borrowing trucks from Cedar, and things were pretty bad. So again, it was something that was already decided and voted on to allow him to go buy that garbage truck. Some of the things that haven't been talked about in prior meetings that were at least somewhat significant. We had to, we did a change, and this is, I don't know how interesting it is to everybody, but it's significant in the way that we deal with prior years. Uncollectible, when we have somebody that doesn't pay the utility bill for a while, it's probably, I don't know how widely known it is, but that amount due and payable is actually transferred to their tax account so that it can be collected. It's one of the advantages that we have as the county. We can go ahead and throw it on their property tax. At that point, it comes off the accounts receivable on the enterprise fund and shifts over. Well, from an accounting perspective, it was not very clean. There wasn't a good audit trail, and it wasn't being done appropriately, the method that we had been using. So now we're actually, what we're doing on paper anyway, is we write that expense off as a bad debt, and in the year that it comes back in as revenue, once it's collected, it could be 5-6 years before it's collected, then it comes back in as a prior year's revenue. And so that's there's different ways to do that. This way will make it so we don't have some random balance sheet account that just slowly grows into this problem. As it is now, we write everything off to the penny. It's the debt is still there. I mean, it's not like the customer doesn't have to pay it. It's just not on the utility books anymore. Now it's on the tax books. And then once it gets paid, then I divide that back out, and it goes back to the relative utilities based on the percentage split that it went in. That's the only way to do it with given our technology that we have. But it's effective and it works, and this way we'll deal with it nice and clean.
I'd like to take a minute and just thank Dan for that. That's my office does that billing, and it as it moves in and out of an enterprise fund, and you know, like Dan said, there was some confusion there, and this has really clarified the process, the paper trail, and how the money moves. So I think it's really helped a lot.
Well, it should be good. And not only that, it's now, because it's a budget item, it's easy to look and see how much was expensed, how much. It's not lost in the annals of the process. Instead, it's actually right out on the surface. And to give you an idea, this year, and you can't really, I apologize, it's hard to see, but bad debt expense for the sewer company this year, $9,300 that's been written off to taxes. Landfill is $78,000. And solid waste collections is $1,900. So I have to add the expense and the revenue side. The revenue is in the middle of being collected. That just kind of comes in as it comes in, but we'll get a big chunk of it as we're doing property taxes Nicole is collecting right now. Anyway, so I've had to create those two line items in each one of the enterprise funds, and then put a budget in there so that expense doesn't take us over budget. So anyways, it's more of a put you to sleep with the accounting side of it, but just so everybody understands kind of how that works and how we'll be tracking that moving forward, and had to put that in the budget.
Question, Dan.
Yeah.
So the 78,000 on landfill, that isn't just this year. That's the aggregate of.
That's this year.
That it? We've had that much. That's super high, isn't it?
No, not surprisingly high. That's a lot of money, I agree, but as far as is it an abnormal year, no.
Which underscores the need for the proper accounting that Dan has now kind of helped us implement, or really implemented for us to allow us to track it going from one area to the other. I mean, it really is. It's like when we talk about this, it's like talking about paint drying. It's super boring, but from a perspective of being able to track that, because 78,000 is significant.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was. Yeah.
Oh, good.
It's not an advisable way to go, because we add a lot of
fees
and overhead on it, but a lot of people do it.
Most of it's in. Okay.
Thank
you.
But those fees are justified because it's a pain in the.
There's a lot of administrative effort that has to go into it.
So, anyways, so that's the way we're going to be doing that now. So if you see a bad debt expense, and it looks like our expenses went up, it's really an accounting thing, but. It's good when things can see the light of day, and when they don't, become a problem that grows and grows and grows. Speaking of Nicole, we're doing a $10,000 adjustment to merchant fees. We knew that merchant fees, more and more people are paying with credit card on their property taxes, and which the advantage of that is we're seeing our collection rate getting higher and higher and higher, and less outstanding, which is a good thing. But more people are paying with their credit card, and it's a cost of doing business this year. And it's hard because we're adjusting the budget now, and a bulk of these transactions is still not even finished. So the fear was, as we looked at what's been happening historically, we were going to go over budget there. So we matched the 18 budget to 19's projected budget, and by bumping it up by 10,000. So who knows? We may not even need it, but if it's there, it's there. It's not like it can be spent in any other way. It's just kind of an automatic thing. So, and finally, and I want to thank Mr. Washburn. he saved everybody in this room that has to be here from having an emergency meeting. Because, as you know, we talked a little while ago about doing a fund balance transfer from the general fund to the road department. We had 1.5 million that we needed to transfer. Half of it decided to go to the road fund, half of it to capital projects fund. We were going to have some debate as to actually what projects they were going to go to. Well, I had written the report for the state auditor. I had done everything. I'd met with you, and in my mind it was done, and I hadn't actually put it in the budget to transfer, and it has to happen in this year. So when Bruce was there this morning, he asked me, and I said, no, we did that in the mid-year budget adjustment. And I went to look because I'm kind of anal retentive that way, and it wasn't there. And I thought, well, holy cow, I hadn't done it yet. So what isn't on this and what you guys haven't seen is what we've already approved, namely we will be appropriating money in the general fund, 1.5 million. Under the line item, the revenue line item appropriation, and we will be transferring out 750,000 under the line item transfer to road department. We'll be transferring out 750,000 under line item transfer to capital projects fund. Then in those funds, capital projects fund, we will have a revenue line transfer from general fund, and then we will have a increase on a line item called increasing the fund balance. There'll be a revenue and expense, and on both of them, a revenue and expense transfer from the general fund and increase the fund balance. So those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 budget entries will go in there as having been approved in this meeting, assuming you approve it.
And the total amount was 500,000, right?
1.5 million.
Okay, okay, thank you.
It was split 50-50, 750 and 750. And I apologize because in my mind it was a done deal because everything has been done except for this part. So I thank Bruce for that. He saved us having an emergency meeting right around Christmas time. That's my presentation. Again, almost everything there has been already discussed in the meeting. I can answer any question on any one of the specific line items. There was one that was added just at the last minute, and that was a body camera grant and expense from the state. We weren't aware of it because it wasn't really a grant. They basically just agreed and said we could buy some body cameras up to 5,000. The sheriff spent that amount, and we got the check the other day, and it was just made aware. I was just made aware of it since I sent this out to the commission. Everything else is pretty much either bookkeeping type stuff or small enough that it's quite insignificant. The commissioners have any questions before we turn over to the public hearing? Okay.
No.
One comment for the audience. I'd like you to know how pleased the county is with the accounting services for Mr. Jessen. He knows what he's doing. He knows where the money is, where it goes, where it comes from. Very pleased to have his services as a county auditor.
Thank you for that.
I would echo that.
Absolutely.
Okay, the chair declares floor open to public hearing for comments on the presentation of the 2018 budget amendments. Okay, seeing none, chair declares public hearing closed. We'll move on to item number 6, resolution 2018-14, adopting the 2018 amended budget, and call for a motion.
I move approval of resolution 2018-14, adopting the 2018 amended budget of Iron County, Utah.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is approved. I'm going to mix up the order of the agenda real quickly. We don't have public comments on until number 14, but I understand there are a couple of people somebody that would like to make some public comments that are in a little bit of a time crush. So I'm going to move item number 14 up to right now for public comments. Just a quick reminder that we have a 3-minute time limit. Don't repeat others' comments. Only items that are not on the agenda, and no items related to the Commission's role as an appeal board. Turn the time over for public comments.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Brian Dangerfield, and I'm the Events Director for Cedar City. Just wanted to give you a quick update on some of the events we had this past year, and wanted to say also thank you to Maria Twitchell and the Tourism Office for all the help and your help in bringing the Tour of Utah for the 4th time. They did what was called the Killer Diller Loop, and which takes you through just about all the cities, at least on the eastern part of the county. And it was a real opportunity to kind of show off all those assets that Maria tries to portray out there in tourism. And we had Fox Sports 1 showed those highlights throughout the world. As a result of our 2016 event, that interested a company called Outroute, a company from Switzerland that will be doing an amateur cycling event on August 23rd through the 25th this next year. So they're going to do that same Killer Diller Loop, and it's a 3-day stage race. The first day they'll come in from Bryce Canyon and come through Brian Head, down through Parowan and back to Cedar City. And then the next day, Saturday the 24th, they'll do that Killer Diller Loop that Tour of Utah did, and then they'll do a time trial race the next day from downtown Cedar up on top of Cedar Mountain. And they were just here last week. They picked a bad time to come and drive our roads. There was a lot of snow up there, but they had a great time, and they just love Utah. They love southern Utah in particular, and we're seeing that these cycling events are really bringing a lot of notoriety, and it gives us an opportunity to show off Cedar Breaks and Brian Head and Parowan and all the towns along the way, and they're very excited about it. We also had, for the first time ever, at least in Cedar City, an ultra run, a 50K ultra run, and we're going to be seeing a lot more of these types of running races. We'll continue to do our half marathon and many other running races, but there'll also be some other interesting cycling events as well, not just necessarily races, but touring groups coming to town. So just wanted to give that update to you and say thank you for your support of these events that we bring to town. And we do these events not just for the revenue that they bring into town, the TRT tax and sales tax, but also to brand the community and give a little community pride. We have so many volunteers help us. And again, thank you for the opportunity. Thanks for bumping me up on the schedule there, or the others. And I just want to give that report to you and say thank you for all your help throughout the years.
Oh,
Appreciate
thank you. I just thought, when Outroute comes, or is it going to be the same kind of pomp and circumstances as the Tour of Utah?
It's not. Let's put it this way: we want to, and we're looking to have some other people come and create the Velo Village kind of atmosphere and send off these cyclists. They'll be coming from throughout the world. We did a test event this last September, and we had riders from Costa Rica that had never been at this altitude before. And they were so excited, and there were some people that were saying, what was going on. There was only about 36 people, and they did some filming. But we'd like to, down at Main Street Park, create a little Velo Village and invite different groups to come. And we know we have people that speak many different languages here, and we expect to have people from Europe and South America and New Zealand and Asia come here for that event. So I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you.
Oh, cool. Look forward to it.
Okay, appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Brian.
Thank you.
I speak New Zealand.
Any other public comments? Okay. Going to move on to item number 7 on the agenda. At this point, we will step out of our role as the Iron County Commission and convene as the Iron County Community Development and Renewal Agency for item number 7, 8, and 9, and 10.
Thank you. For the sake of the minutes, I'm Adam Long. I'm the attorney for the Iron County Community Development and Renewal Agency. We have a handful of items affecting the agency on the agenda today. Most of them are fairly straightforward. The first item we have, number 7 on the agenda, is dissolving a project area. So several years ago, 2, maybe 3, time flies, we created a redevelopment project area for the iron mine. That never really materialized. The development we expected and the development that was proposed hasn't happened and doesn't look likely to happen in the near future. What we're proposing to do is to dissolve that project area. In a very oversimplified sense, a project area is an area on the map where the agency can exercise its specific powers. Dissolving the project area basically erases that line on the map. No money's been committed to this project area, so this won't affect the flow of any tax dollars. But dissolving it makes it easier for a number of county officials from an administrative standpoint. And likely, if development ever looks likely in the future, we would potentially reconsider it. But for now, it probably makes sense to dissolve that project area. And further down the agenda, there's a corresponding ordinance as one of the county action items.
Okay, I move approval of Iron County Community Development and Renewal Agency Resolution 2018-4, dissolving the Black Iron Community Development Project area and renouncing Iron County Community Development and Renewal Agency's adoption of the Black Iron Community Development Project Area Plan.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, item number 7 is approved.
Item number 8 is the approval of several cost reimbursement agreements for proposed solar projects. The standard approach for a redevelopment project, particularly a solar project, is to have the project or the developer bear the costs of the setup and whatnot of that project area. And it can be done one of 2 ways. The first way is to have a reimbursement agreement in place, basically where the developer agrees to cover the agency's expenses in setting up this project area for their particular project. The other way would be to have the agency retain a slightly larger portion of the tax increment on the back end and basically pay it back. We tend to prefer the reimbursement agreement approach. That way, if the project doesn't materialize, falls apart, something else goes wrong, the agency's not out any money. We like to keep as much risk on the developers as we can. So we have 4 projects, 2 by Long Road Solar. These are Fremont and Rush Lake. These are project areas that were created as a set of 5 SunEdison projects back when SunEdison existed pre-bankruptcy. These projects are all set up in separate project LLCs, so the projects themselves have changed ownership. As I understand it, they have a very high chance of moving forward at this point. And essentially the agency's actions with regard to those project areas would be doing new interlocal agreements and then potentially a new incentive agreement with those developers. Those project areas have already been created and exist. 2 other ones, Cove Mountain 1 and Cove Mountain 2, are solar projects proposed by a group called First Solar. I talked to the guy from First Solar. He said those projects have interconnection agreements and power purchase agreements in place at this point. So those are not quite a sure thing, but very, very close to it. We're not asking you to approve the specifics of, approve actual agreements by resolution, simply an authorization.
What's the location on Full Mountain 1 and 2?
I don't know off the top of my head. I don't.
Reed can
Danny may have a better.
Yeah, they're located.
Oh, there we go.
Immediately west of the Enterprise and the Newcastle big one.
Oh.
That's by.
And by Bob Holtz.
Immediately west, they're actually a little bit of Holtz, but it's mostly Jones's.
Yeah.
Jones's property.
Okay.
On Jones Lane, right there. They're located just west and a little bit north of that.
Are they contiguous with
They
Bob
would be
Holt?
contiguous with the Newcastle Enterprise facility on the west side.
And so we just look for authorization for the agency to execute interlocal agreements as we have in the past, where we take a deposit up front for essentially the entire expected cost of setting up a project, and anything left over gets paid back to the developer at the end.
Okay. Call for a motion on item number 8.
Okay, I move approval of cost reimbursement agreements, be able to enter into cost reimbursement agreements for Fremont, Rush Lake, Cove Mountain 1, and Cove Mountain 2 solar projects.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Number 8 is approved. Move on to number 9.
Number 9 is approving interlocal agreements for what we call the Fiddler's Canyon Solar Community Reinvestment Project area. The Fiddler's Canyon solar projects are 3 megawatt-ish solar projects that we're rolling into one project area. Last time I was here, which was, I don't know how long ago at this point, a couple months ago, we created this project area. The approval of the interlocals just didn't make it on the agenda.
Yeah.
And these agreements are 50% for 10 years is what we're proposing.
Call for a motion.
You're the spokesman today.
Good. Your voice tough today. I move approval of Iron County Community Development and Renewal Agency Resolution number 2018-5, approving interlocal agreements between the Iron County Community Development and Renewal Agency, Iron County, the Iron County School District, the Iron County Unincorporated Area Service District number 2, and the Central Iron County Water Conservancy District regarding the Fiddler's Canyon Solar Community Reinvestment Project area.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That is approved.
And it's worth noting from a process perspective, for the county and the Unincorporated Area Services District, we have the sort of the other side of the coin later on the agenda as item 11 and 13. So this is the agency's approval of the agreements, and then those other entities will approve those agreements.
Are we current with your services being paid?
Yes, we are. I appreciate that concern.
We appreciate your efforts.
Thank you. So item number 10, the approval of rebate of incremental tax paid toward the Red Hills Renewables Community Development Project area.
Morning, Commissioners. Getting into this a couple of years, we're seeing that these are a little bit easier to manage and deal with. This is something that we'll see annually for the life of these projects. This is the first one that was created in the county, the Utah Red Hills solar project, and the company has done everything that's been requested in the interlocal agreements to meet the requirements for reimbursement of the taxes that they paid for 2018. Number one, they developed the facilities as agreed upon. They've paid their fees and taxes, and they have sent proof of payment. They have a letter of compliance with a conditional use permit from Reed, and they have made this request for the reimbursement last week, which is before the deadline of April 1st of next year. We'll be seeing a few more of these coming in before April 1st, I anticipate, but this is the first one of that batch.
Then move the approval of rebate of incremental taxes paid toward the Red Hills Renewable Community Development Project area.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, that is approved. Do those in a minute.
Okay. Dale made that motion.
Yes. Okay, with those items wrapped up, we will adjourn as the Iron County Community Development and Renewal Agency and convene as the Iron County Unincorporated Area Services District number 2 to take care of item number 11. Item number 11 is the UASD number 2 resolution 2018-2, approving an interlocal agreement with the ICCDNRA regarding the Fiddler's Canyon Solar Community Reinvestment Project area. Call for a motion on number 11.
I move approval of the Unincorporated Area Service District Number 2, Resolution 2018-2, approving an interlocal agreement with the Iron County Community Development and Renewal Agency regarding the Fiddler's Canyon Solar Community Reinvestment Project area.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that is approved. Now we will adjourn as the Iron County Unincorporated Area Services District Number 2 and reconvene as the Iron County Commission for item number 12, which is discussion and possible adoption of ordinance 2018-6, dissolving the Black Iron Community Development Project area and renouncing Iron County's adoption of the Black Iron Community Development Project Area Plan.
I move adoption of ordinance 2018-6, dissolving the Black Iron Community Development Project area and renouncing Iron County's adoption of the Black Iron Community Development Project Area Plan.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Number 12 is approved. Okay, moving on to item number 13, Resolution 2018-15, approving an interlocal agreement with the ICC-DNRA regarding the Fiddler's Canyon Solar Community Reinvestment Project area. Call for a motion on item number 13.
My mind can read that much. Motion to approve resolution number 2018-15, approving an interlocal agreement with the ICC-DNRA regarding the Fiddler's Canyon Solar Community Reinvestment Project area.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item number 13 carries. Public comment. We took care of item number 14 already. Move on to item number 15, which is consideration of an abatement of taxes for Mountain Cabin, property located at 1059 East Meadow Drive, Bryan Head, in the Cedar Breaks Mountain home site, Unit B, Block B, Lot 6. Requested by Shem and Susan Mackert.
Shem was here, and I will go see if I can find him if you want to just skip to 16 and we'll be back.
I let him know too. I told him I'd let him know, but it started going really quick, so I'm like, you better get back.
I'll go see if he's done.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right. We'll move to item number 16 real quick. Item number 16 is the Silver Peak Supply in Newcastle requests a local consent for an off-premise beer retailer license. They need to be in compliance with the changes in the Utah Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control, which took effect July 1st of 2018.
Is this the old Hart store? The intersection of Newcastle and 56?
I believe it is. I think when I went by there last time, it had that Silver Peak.
Silver Peak Supply.
I'm not certain, but I think it is.
So what essentially is a change in the law that prompted this?
I have a guess, but I don't know what it is they're asking for exactly. There was a change that required an off-premises entity to have authorization from the local government entity before they receive a license from the state to operate an off-premises.
So by off-premises,
facility.
do we know what that means?
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't know what they're asking.
Yeah, because they.
That's what my guess.
That was my first question. Do they do off-premise sales, or are they planning on doing off-premise sales of beer? Because they just have they have a fixed store at this point.
Is no one here talking to that agenda item?
Chanel is she's been watching it live, and so she's here to speak to it. I'm sure she's super excited.
So excited. So I went to the UBA. I'm Chanel Bess. I'm with the county clerk's office. I went to the UBLA business license training that they do once a year in Bryce Canyon in August. I don't know when it was.
Oh, yeah.
And so the state is now asking to get local consent for off-premises beer sellers. And so that's what this is. So it is going to be mandatory. It has to be taken care of by March of 2019. So that's what we're here for. We only have one here in Iron County that sells off-site, and That's them. They're in Newcastle.
Where
So-
are their off-site sales?
What's that?
Up at the school grounds or the church?
Their convenience store there in Newcastle.
But that's not off
That's
site.
on site though.
That's on. That's
Well,
on.
so they're consuming. So they're selling, packs of alcohol, beer, and they're taking it off-site.
So the consumption.
Okay.
is
The
off
consumption is off-site, yes. So-
Gotcha.
And so, like, we have a few, like Rusty's and Milt's. They serve it there in this, in the restaurant. And so they have to get local consent from us when they obtain their alcohol license. And so now they're wanting off-site premises to get local consent as well. So that's what that is.
So Mike,
Okay.
this doesn't change anything from how they've been operating in the past.
Well, it allows, I mean, you can put restrictions, you can regulate it otherwise if you'd like to.
But essentially, they've been conducting business in this manner.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Yes, they have been. So
So this is a reaction to the new UBLA rules.
to the new state law, yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Anything different than that, I'd expect we'd want the person to be here and present herself or their self.
You, Chanel. Thank you.
If that's as minor it is, I would move the approval of Silver Peak Supply in Newcastle request for local consent for an off-premise beer retail license.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, that is approved. See, Mr. Mackert is back. We'll move back to item number 15. Consider an abatement of taxes for Mountain Cabin. Property located at 1059 East Meadow Drive, Bryan
Hello,
Head,
Jim.
Hi, how are
Cedar
you?
Breaks Mountain Home Site, Unit B, Block B, Lot 6.
Yes.
Go ahead.
All right. When we got our tax notice, it was way higher than we'd planned, and it looks like they valued the property at 800 and something thousand. We sent in a copy of the cost breakdown, a copy of the appraisal. It appraised for 420,000, and so just. I mean, I'm willing to pay my fair share, but I want it to be, based on what it's worth, rather than I don't know where we. And I think my wife told me that they said that was like a 75% valuation because it wasn't totally completed at the time they did the assessment.
Where'd Cindy go, Mike? Oh, she walked out. I can't see her.
Want me to respond? So hi Shem.
Hi, how are you?
Shem and I will talk before, or we'll talk again after, but my issue is that this should have come to Board of Equalization. My understanding is, and I don't want to speak for you, but that he did not get his valuation notice that came in July. I don't know how we know, but it was sent to the same address as his home that he lives in. He got that notice, or at least that's my understanding. So because he didn't receive that notice, I think he's asking for consideration that would have normally taken place in Board of Equalization. But because you as commissioners in this board don't have the authority to reopen Board of Equalization after it's closed based on statute 59.2, 1004, I think, but I'm not totally sure off the top of my head. So within your capacity, you can abate any taxes you want as commissioners. So I believe that's what he's asking you, but I don't want to put words into his mouth.
Yes, that's correct.
But I don't know how you come up with how much to abate, because we would normally, in Board of Equalization, discuss the different values between what the assessor's office has placed on it and his appraisal and see where all that is. Mr. Macker also can appeal to the state. If you miss the deadline for Board of Equalization, you can appeal to the state and say, basically, again, don't want to put words in his mouth, but we missed the deadline, we would like the consideration. The state will then look not at the value, but only at the process and can either say, too bad you missed the deadline, or yes, based on these circumstances, they can order the county to reopen Board of Equalization. We can have that discussion. So
What are your recommendations?
I feel bad because I really like Shem, but I think we have to proceed with what the law says, which is the deadline has passed. But I mean, it just hurts my gut to even say that. And I kind of told Commissioner Blake and Adams earlier that if you say we're going to make an exception here, then it just becomes hard for you to not say that for the next person that says, hey, I didn't get my notice, and the next person. So that's why you guys are up there and I'm here, so you get to make that decision.
But on the other hand, if it goes back to state, that just adds a layer of confusion, I guess, and it still comes back to the same decision.
Well, if the state says we have to open Board of Equalization, then we do, and then we can actually talk about value. My guess is the value's probably somewhere between the 800 that we have on for it and the 400 that his appraisal is. I mean, my gut is, I love public meetings. His appraisal was a lowball appraisal because he built it himself. He didn't have that much, you know, you're not worried about hitting that value because it's not like it's a sale that's not going to go through if you're not there. So he built it himself. He already owned the lot. I mean, I don't know all of it, but so there's some things, and appraisal is not an exact science. And so, you know, oh, hey, I'm only going to borrow X, so I got to be at 80% of that, or I've got to be at 70% of that because it's a second, and whatever those are. Sometimes we don't always go there. So, but we're not having that discussion right here because you don't have the authority to open Board of Equalization.
So does he have enough time to go back through the state and come back and take care of all this before tax time to avoid any penalty and interest?
Taxes have been paid. They were paid by his mortgage company on the 19th of November.
So again, he'd be looking for a rebate, a reimbursement.
Yes. And also when we got the appraisal back, our lender, Kent, with MGM Mortgage, was surprised. He said, wow, that came in good. You know, so, and the appraiser said, he says, with all the comps we've got, this is the best that we can do on the appraisal. And for me, wanting to keep the cabin, like you said, the appraisal wasn't really, you know, that big of an issue, you know.
And again, we can talk about that because
Okay.
I've got appraisals in Steam Engine for these kinds of numbers.
I don't have my old guy glasses on, so I can't see.
So, because we have people from the board, and I can't give you copies of this this MLS number, but I can tell you the MLS number. There was a cabin on Autumn Drive that sold for $803, and one on Sunrise that sold for $750. So, I question that your appraisal didn't want
was
to
this
bring those
after
in.
the sale of, after we built our cabin?
This one sold before. Sold
Before.
11 of 17 and 11 of 17. So, I mean, and
Yeah.
these are things that
Yeah.
we would normally talk about in Board of Equalization.
Right.
So Cindy, if we deny the abatement today, that automatically refers it back to the state, is that
No,
correct?
and he has paperwork that Carrie Christensen, as clerk of Board of Equalization, will give him, and basically he sends it to the state and says, will you reconsider?
So what action do we need
position?
to do to ensure that that's the process and we follow the law and just simply deny the abatement?
You would ask counsel how you follow the law, because I don't know.
You can deny the abatement and he can proceed to the tax commission if that's what he wants to do.
Isn't that the cleanest way to proceed?
I guess it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. But that's
It's
a
not
way
the
to-
cleanest for Shem.
Comment? As has been mentioned, we're not appraisers, so if we tried to do an abatement, I don't know how we could ever get it correct, because we're not appraisers, and that's why at the Board of Equalization we have professional people that take care of that. And then the other thing is the precedent that would be set by us doing this. We could have a flood of people coming in, so I really feel uncomfortable with doing an abatement, but I'm glad that you have that recourse to go to the state, and I think that's where we should go with this.
We still like to make sure you had fair assessment and due process to get a fair assessment, and so long as that still happens, then I would move to deny the abatement for taxes on mountain cabin property located at 1059 East Meadow Drive, Bryan Head, in Cedar Breaks Mountain Home Site Unit B, Block 2, Lot 6. My hell, Tim.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Does that give you a
Thanks, Sam.
Does that give you a route to go on?
All right. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Item number 17 is, this isn't an action item today, simply a discussion.
Oh, Mr. Eden.
On discussion on short-term rentals to update commission and public on ordinance recommended by the Iron County Planning Commission. Consider date for public hearing and ordinance adoption. So this is
Morning, Commission.
Good morning.
I do have a couple of other summaries if there's other in the public interested. I just did a summary sheet here to explain a little bit about the ordinance, give a little history on what we're doing. And if anybody gives me their email address today, I'd be glad to send them a copy of the draft ordinance. But this is simply to just kind of bring us up to date and to remind us of where we've been and where we're going with this. The Planning Commission had reviewed this issue for a long time. I'm like, it was on the agenda. I just put on here from March through November of 2016. Prior to that, we'd discussed it a couple of times. We had done a county model draft ordinance given to the Iron County Coordinating Council in March or April of 2016. It's been in the discussion for a long time. The Utah legislature has been dealing with it for the last 3 legislative sessions in terms of trying to figure out how to regulate short-term rentals in the state. They ended up not doing anything in terms, and part of what we were, in our early discussion, we were waiting to see what the legislature was going to do. We were waiting to see what other municipalities in the county were going to do and where this thing was going. We kind of were out on the front end of it in terms of regulation, and I think the commission and the county commission both kind of wanted to see where it was going and what would happen. But the industry first approached the state and requested that the state say that the industry was, and by industry I'm just saying companies like Airbnb, VRBO, other companies like that are active online, to say that the state pass an ordinance that prohibited local government from regulating them, to exempt them from regulation. And the state didn't do that. The only thing the state ended up doing in this last legislative session was to prohibit a local government from using the web search or websites to enforce ordinances on them. So it didn't really do anything in terms of prohibiting local government from regulating it. So the county commission, or the planning commission, went through several versions of ordinances and made a recommendation to approve the one that you currently have copies of. Part of the history and what was involved and what the ordinance does, just let me go over a few highlights of the ordinance. It brings us in compliance with the section in our code that requires the collection of transient room tax. This ordinance also defines transient room tax, what transient is, because that wasn't defined in our ordinance previously. It just listed hotels, motels, things like that, but it didn't go into the area that we're in now with short-term rentals of residential facilities. And so we define that and simply, try to get in conformance with our ordinance. The definition is really probably the most important thing that we're doing, and this definition I'll just read briefly. The short-term rental means a privately owned residential dwelling, such as but not limited to a single-family dwelling, multifamily dwelling, apartment house, guest house, duplex, rented for occupancy for dwelling, lodging, or sleeping purposes for any period less than 30 consecutive days when the owner is not present. We originally didn't have when the owner is not present in there, and we had a lot of confusion of whether somebody rents out their bedroom, whether they rent out something, and our conflict with our current ordinance for bed and breakfasts and other types of uses that we have where the owner is present. And a lot of the concern about in residential neighborhoods when somebody rents a home and it just becomes a party house. We have nuisance complaints and parking issues and noise issues. We're really all concerned when the owner wasn't present. When the owner is present, they're less likely to have a lot of the issues that we had concerns with. And so this simply describes the short-term rental ordinance affecting those where the owner is not present. They simply turn the house over to someone else. And what we did was we broke that down into two categories. One, 25 nights or less, we call incidental, and that's if somebody just wants to try it and see. They may go for a couple of weeks and trade homes with somebody, and they they're not doing it for a full-time basis. They leave their home. They normally live in the home, but they leave it for a short period and let somebody else live in it. We have a lot of that going on at summer games. People come, leave their home for a week, rent it out to somebody else, comes and rents their home for a week. Things like that are the incidental level. And then we had the business level, which is more than 25 nights a year. And that the incidental could occur in all zones where residential is allowed. The business level could occur in all zones except the R1/2, which is our smallest, highest density, smallest lot residential development. And so in those two categories, the regulations are different only in that with the business level, that requires an administrative land use permit, a carbon monoxide detector, a posted map on the property showing where they can park and when, all the emergency information, and on-site parking. That's required in the business level. The incidental and the business require, the tax collection, the fire extinguisher and smoke detector, notification to the renters of emergency information, and the business license requirement. So those are all required for all of those, except for the business it goes just a little further in the land use application of requiring an administrative land use permit. So that was a boiled down version or summary of what the ordinance ended up being. Of course, you've got the ordinance, and it's longer than just this summary sheet. There's enforcement issues in there. There's things that talk about how we deal with nuisances, how we deal with noise problems, how we make the owner of the property as responsible, and also the renter responsible for compliance with those ordinances and things like that. So there's more certainly in the ordinance, and we can discuss those later. But I just wanted to bring us up to date, let you know that there's rarely a week, maybe 2 weeks goes by without us getting a request for information about our short-term rental licensing and ordinances. And we just say, well, right now we don't have anything in our ordinance that allows these. We have a lot of them currently operating in the county, but they're not, we don't have a use for them. We don't have a category for them. Most of them, I think, are licensed, are operating with the registration of their tax collection, and they're doing that, but we don't have a land use for them. And we don't have a use that allows them to legally operate in the unincorporated area of the county. And we need to get something because we have a continuing more of those all the time.
Reed, you guys have talked about this for a long time, and a lot of the other communities have been coming along on their ordinances. What are some of the lessons that you've learned through other people's hard experiences, I guess?
You know, each community handles a little differently. Cedar City is probably the one that's dealt with it most recently, and they've been kind of back and forth in terms of not allowing it in certain residential areas, allowing it in some areas. St. George is the one we probably hear most about in the state, and I think their situation is a little different than ours in terms of the destination and holiday times that they have a big influx. But a lot of those are problems that they associate with the person being present and not present and what zones they allow them in. Unincorporated areas and other cities have different situations in terms of their density and their residential areas and the restrictions in some of their neighborhoods that are private and things like that. When the city does an ordinance and it just opens it wide open, then you've got a lot of other issues related to communities that don't allow it. And we've had some CCNR or people in subdivisions and CCNRs in our own county that don't allow them. And so they would be responsible for their own enforcement on those. If we say it's allowed in an R1 zone, but they're in a subdivision that doesn't allow it, then of course the CCNRs or that homeowners association would be obligated to enforce that. We wouldn't. So right now we're just saying residential or R1 half zone is the only zone that you couldn't do it all the time when you're not there. That you'd have to, you would have some restriction of just turning your home over and that home just being a hotel.
Is there a process by which someone in that R1 half could do like
they can do incidental. They can do less than 25 nights a year, but they couldn't do over 25 nights a year. And that's where the Planning Commission landed. Thought that that's a reasonable compromise for what these are. We'll see how that works, and if there are a lot of problems with R1 or R2 and we've got them in these other neighborhoods, I don't think it is going to be that big of a problem, but I think we're in pretty good shape with what we've got proposed. Well, it's up to commission. Yeah.
Please.
So what if it's a partial home occupied, so they're renting out, say, the basement and they live upstairs?
Then this doesn't affect them. This is if they're not on premise. So that solved a lot of our problem when we put that in there, when the owner is not present.
But there haven't really been any problems when the owner's not present either.
We've had a few calls, but nothing that, you know, couldn't occur just in any other neighborhood. But that's because we've told them the ordinance is proposed, and we've had several new ones come in, and they all fit in the R1 or greater zones. We've told the number of people who wanted to do them in R1 half that they could not, that the ordinance, proposed ordinance does not allow them in R1 half. So we've let a lot of people know that. We've said, you can't do it. It doesn't allow it in our ordinance, but here's what the new ordinance proposes. So a lot of them are in R5 or R2, and we haven't enforced against them. We've said just make sure you get your work on your business license, make sure you're registered with the state. We'll try to get this ordinance approved as soon as we can so that then you are legal.
I think the R1 half is a good, restricting it in that zone is probably going to make more people comfortable with this than anything we've done, because people, if they're in a pretty dense situation, then it becomes a bigger problem, obviously.
Parking especially, and noise and whatnot. You've heard all the complaints from a lot of different areas. So,
but this is really a a can of worms issue. I'm not sure how we'd ever try and enforce it. But the biggest problem is, where do we impose restrictions on private ownership? That bothers me a little. If people were responsible for their private ownership, then there wouldn't be any need for this proposed ordinance anyway. I believe they should be paying their transient fees just like everyone else, but I don't know.
Yeah, it comes down to a zoning issue.
We,
You know,
we
what
have a problem. in
uses
town.
are right, correct in what zones, you know.
I live across the street from some cowboys that you can't get mad at them. They're wilder than hell, and they've got about 15 different outfits there all the time and barking dogs, and I don't know. They're way beyond the code, but I don't know. It's just part of life. I have some problems with trying to decide how far we should go as government to restrict private property ownership. And again, that gets down to when those private property rights spill over onto the neighbor's property rights and their ownership next door.
The Planning Commission struggled a lot with that issue, and where's the balance? And that's kind of where we came down. Is felt like this is a reason.
I don't know how you come up with a decent mix. I'm concerned about enforcement. I think we have codes now that we can't find time or bodies, personnel to enforce.
So the going forward then is a matter of just making, a commitment to publish. We would advertise for a public hearing on January 14th. That's the next available meeting. Don't know whether you want to put it on for adoption at that point, whether you felt like you wanted to hold a public hearing on the 14th and then adopt the following time, or we put it on and then depending on what kind of feedback you get, then you could either take action or you could take it at the subsequent meeting. So
I'll come to watch the vote.
I'll defer that to you, but if you're all right, we'll go ahead and advertise for a public hearing and adoption on January 14th.
I'd like to have just public hearing.
Okay.
On that first one.
And then adoption in the subsequent meeting.
And I realize if we have adoption on there, we don't have to adopt
That's
it.
correct.
But I think probably just public hearing.
I'm comfortable with that saying, let's do a public hearing, give it, cause I know last time this came around, it was before I was on the commission, but there were a lot of comments. If we could schedule for public hearing on the 14th,
then the 28th,
and then
meeting, right?
Put it on the agenda for the subsequent meeting for approval.
Very good. Any other questions?
Thanks, Reed.
Thank you. Move on to agenda item number 18, approval of crushing gravel contract for the road department 2018 and 2019.
Give me 2 shakes. I've got it. This is the same that Steve Platt visited with you about.
Right.
And it was this one right here. And this is $5.38 a yard for Susan Martin Construction. And that was the best price. So I guess I'll just reiterate what Steve Platt had mentioned. This is the crushing contract. Felt like it was a very good price. This is Susan Martin Construction had the lowest bid, and he felt very comfortable with that price. He had presented the bid sheet earlier during his report. This is the actual contract to be signed, and there's 3 copies of it.
So this would be for consideration, approval of the crushing gravel contract for road department 2018 and 19. Contract being with Susan Martin Construction for the unit price of $5.38 per cubic yard for a total of $269,000.
Good bid. Move to accept it and approve it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are we meeting?
I got a whole stack.
Oh, did you do them?
Huh?
You're quick.
Yeah.
Good job.
Done.
Sorry, what?
Are we meeting as a Board of Equalization when we just told Shem we couldn't?
Different issues.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
okay.
you can't.
Like said, he said we should call it something else. But
You can't adjust values That's what she.
Okay,
yeah.
okay, very good.
So you do this quite often with these types of.
We do.
But this is a different type of question.
Throws a flag. Thank you.
Okay, for item number 19, we'll step out of our role as the Board of Iron County Commissioners and convene as the Board of Equalization. Item number 19 is review and consider a request from Southern Utah University for tax exempt status beginning October 23rd, 2018 through December 31st, 2018 on property tax parcel B 1253-3-BL located at 2265 West Kitty Hawk Drive, Cedar City. The property was purchased on October 23rd, 2018 from A. Leon Matheson.
Okay, I apologize because I didn't make extra copies, so. But it's pretty self-explanatory. The university purchased the property. They have paid the taxes up until, well, the previous owner paid the taxes up until the sale took place. They paid $1,685.93, so there's $400.05 that they're requesting be exempted through the balance of this year, and then beginning next year they would be considered 100%. They don't have to apply each year, so it's just kind of a formality to get them through the end of this year.
Okay, I move approval of the request from Southern Utah University for tax exempt status beginning October 23rd, 2018 through the end of the year on property tax parcel B-1253-3-BL located at 2265 West Kitty Hawk Drive.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's one you'll get.
Thank you.
Then item number 16 is a review and consider for approval low-income abatement and homeowners tax credit applications, mobile home applications, and veterans applications which were received after October 5th, 2018.
Yeah, you had to change a lot.
Microsoft, I wish it were same.
Yeah. Blame it on Bill.
Bill Gates.
This one I do have copies.
So Mike, my numbering started over. I fixed it like 8 times. Just column A, 16A, 17A. If that's not disheartening, that means you don't have 23 items. You got like 27.
Yeah.
Like,
You gotta blow through it. Thank you.
Oops. Okay, what this consists of is either late applications, adjustments, because like on veterans, their percentage had increased and they either thought they had reminded me or they did and I didn't change it. I admit to that. Or there was a couple that had been processed incorrectly because there's one spot that you have to change the how old they are, and I missed it. So at any rate, these are applications that came in after October 8th, which was the last time I presented these. So adjustments that have been made since October 8th for circuit breaker, special, blind, and veterans, as well as adjustments, was $27,400 $453.96. That's at the bottom of that first page I gave you. It's highlighted in yellow. It says total amount needed. And then the second page is mobile home applications. And an amount of $1,358.98 was abated for mobile homes.
Do all of these qualify under the legal definition of the application?
They do, yes.
So we're not creating a special, not doing anything out of the ordinary?
Nope.
No precedent?
Nope.
Christine, what are the numbers you're requesting?
Okay, so for everything but mobile homes is that $27,453.96.
Okay.
And then mobile homes is $1,358.89. And then the sheet that's behind those, this top one is the main one that you'll want to look at. Everything behind there, it goes back, I think I ran off to 2015, previous years. This amount off to the side, $191,008.74, is what is being requested back from the state. That is monies that are paid out through the circuit breaker program. There was 377 regular circuit breakers and 12 mobile home circuit breakers, which comprise that $191,008.74. So we will get a check back for that.
So are these the only two numbers you need for approval?
Mm-hmm. Yes, everything else is just information.
Then I'll move the approval of the abatement as presented by the deputy auditor, in the amount of $27,453.96 and $1,358.98 as per the law.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those abatements are approved. Just for the record, that was item number 16A. 16
I'm so sorry.
Alpha.
Alpha. I had to make an adjustment Saturday afternoon.
I think an elected official with the high esteem of Mr. Whitaker could count, but
Toe.
it is getting up to the toe. Okay. We'll adjourn as the Board of Equalization, reconvene as the Board of Iron County Commission. Item number 17A. Discussion and possible action regarding disposition of the county-owned Fiddler's Canyon building. Lester.
I don't know what happened to Reed. As you know, we've had an appraisal done on the Fiddler's building, and we are just looking for that final approval of direction you would like us to go. We do have potential renters if you want us to rent it out, if we want to go that way, or if we want to proceed and start putting this through the...
Does the appraisal include the additional property?
It does.
It's 800, what is it?
I can't remember it on the top of my head, that's why I needed to read.
About 896, is it?
Something.
Yeah, it was,
just under 9.
Yeah, just under, right around 800.
How much, oh, sorry. Thank you for that information. What portion of the building could we rent immediately if we chose to?
If we chose to rent it immediately, you have to also consider the improvements they would want, the particular renter would want, run the county close to $60,000 to accommodate their needs. but it would be half of the upper floor. So everything but the old Conservancy office would be rented upstairs.
I have a problem with the county getting in the rental business.
Yes, because this would be a...
The downside is when the economy tanks, governmental entities can lower the rent and keep the renters when private people have to still make the same debt service. So I'm not not in the interest. I'm not interested in renting.
We run into because we would have to assess it as it would become taxable property,
Right.
the area that they would be renting.
In your previous statement, were you saying that the Water Conservancy would be leaving?
No, the Water and Conservancy District has moved. They moved offices about 6 months ago. They are back in the where the
In the same building.
same building. They were the recorder was.
Okay.
They went to a bigger office, bigger set of
Sort
offices.
of where Nicole worked. Nicole's
They're
office
quite
was.
happy. We worked with them and did a trade where they paid for half the carpet and we paid for half the carpet, and they got new carpet and they repainted, and
It's quite nice.
One time,
Nice.
they expressed some interest in buying the property. They have any interest or any money, either one?
you'd have to speak with them. I have heard that they had the interest, but it does come down to if they have any money to do it, so.
That's what they want to spend their money on.
I'm sorry I didn't get here right at the beginning.
go ahead.
But I did just want to explain the urgency with the request that we've had. We have Ensign Engineering who calls weekly or more to say, have you decided what we're going to do? Have we decided what we're going to do? And we've asked, the commission to, we don't know what to tell people. They're pushing the hardest, but we've had other requests too. But they've all been private entities. They're not public entities. And so you talked about the amount it would cost to do their remodel. And so I told them the last conversation we had last week that it's on the agenda Monday. I'll be able to tell you after Monday whether we're going to put any money into it and rent it to you or not, or whether we're just going to put it up for sale. So that's really, I hope, where we're at.
Okay.
What's the commercial office space environment in Cedar right now? Is it tight?
Yeah, I talked to a couple of realtors about that. Chad was aware. They brought that up in their home builders last meeting. There's actually quite a bit of space right now available. It's not really tight. There's space both available for sale and for rent right now. It's not a really tight market, but it's just finding the right one sometimes, and what people want. But there is space available and there is space for purchase both.
In your discussions with Sunrise, have they expressed any interest in purchasing it?
No, they're based out of, that's a Salt Lake-based company. This is just a satellite office.
How much space do they want? How much space are they interested in?
Everything on the north end upstairs. So from where the treasurer and the clerk were recently, that whole end on the north.
So would that displace Conservancy?
No, because they're not on the north end. From the Conservancy.
They're on the southwest now.
The Conservancy is in the southwest corner.
Yeah.
They would take the northwest and the northeast corners.
So the clerk's,
They're
the
down
old
in
clerk's
the-
office and the
They're
old
down
treasurer.
in the recorder's old space then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Conservancy's down in the recorder's office.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're in the reporters.
Yeah.
What Ensign wants is where the treasurer and the clerks were. They want to remodel, take some walls out, and take that whole north end of the building.
Yeah, we're currently in the process of moving the emergency manager to the old Water Conservancy office.
And this has a $60K price tag?
At least.
So what's their ROI? 50 years?
Yeah, you would be,
How much is their rent?
that would be the question. We haven't talked to them about the rental space cost.
Yeah, they said we recognize you're incurring additional costs, so above the going rate, which is about $10 a square foot, they would say, we could amortize these improvements over 5 or 10 years. We expect we'd have an increased rent payment for a while to help recuperate some of this cost. They don't expect to recuperate the whole thing because it's part of the public amenity, but they would pay an additional amount for 10 years.
Yeah. Well, there's different scenarios. If we decide to sell it, we might get somebody that just wants it to use completely. But if we don't, then the fact that there's already people in there and this one that wants would be attractive to someone. You know, if they
Yeah,
just
that's
wanted
a
to
hard
rent.
sell.
If
We
they just
talked
want
to real estate people, and they said, you know, it can go either way.
Sure.
The market is such that some people would rather buy it all rented out and have a rental income, and some may buy it because they want the building for their own use, and then
Right.
you've got to kick everybody out. That was part of the challenge that we had in telling anybody that they could move in, was giving them a commitment for more than a few months. You know, to say, yeah, we can guarantee that you'll be here for 5 years or something, or do a 10-year lease. We couldn't do that. So that's why we really needed to know what.
Was the district the only renter in there now?
No, we have the Conservancy District, and we have
a
George
5-county child care referral person downstairs in the one office where the clerk or the auditor was. Just one little office.
But that didn't.
What's do we have a long-term commitment with the Conservancy if that were to be sold?
No, we have an unapproved lease right now that needs to be renewed, so we don't have a commitment there.
Yeah.
Other than we just spent money, and they just spent money on carpet, and they think they're going to stay there for a while.
Sure. Question of our auditor. We've got all of our, just the if we sold it, what we might do with the money, we've got all of our debt paid down, right? Except for the Shakespeare, and that's just already has its income or funding stream.
Projects towards the jail,
Oh,
towards
yeah.
tourism, building, towards whatever we want to do. That would be my recommendation, is don't put it in the general fund. Actually, we just put it
We don't want to do that.
Yeah.
fund balance problem.
Thanks for that clarification.
What so if we decided to sell it, what kind of hoops do we have to jump through, like, timeline wise? How long would it take us to put it on the market?
I'd have to advertise for 14 days.
Have to go public process to.
Yeah.
You know, that's part of the challenge, and we talked about that a little bit. How do we dispose of a property like that? Someone can make an offer, but we have some obligation to make that public, and other people can compete.
Yeah.
We're not sure. Mike, did you look more at that?
The law is fairly.
There's some steps, but we have to do something more than somebody just doing a private negotiation.
It's fairly rigorous, and it demands some sunshine.
Notice, yeah. But you can still, you know how like Sitla sells property, and somebody goes and makes an offer, then they have to make that public, and then that it's for sale, and other people can submit offers. They just have to let people know that it's for sale. They don't have a non-compete clause or anything like that. So it's just that once you make it notice that it's for sale, you advertise, and then you can do, people don't have to bid against each other.
Probably do an auction.
We've got a pretty good auctioneer. We could.
Even.
Yeah, no.
What do you give me?
Well, my preference is simply advertise it for sale. So state that we'd not accept lower than the appraised value, that the commission on the sale will have to be gained over and above the contracted amount equal to the appraised value, and that we would put those funds in a sinking fund for jail replacement, and it would involve the whole property.
Both parcels, the new one you acquired and the building.
Is that a motion? Is that a motion?
Comment on the motion, Kathy, until you.
Get a second.
Yeah, so I'm out of order.
Was that your motion?
Well, it can be, but no, it was just a statement more than anything.
Okay, I didn't hear if you said motion. It sounded like a motion. Okay, so
Oh, I
just a
said my
statement at this
preference.
point.
Ready for a motion?
Ready
Oh.
for.
Since there's no motion.
Comment to Commissioner Brinkerhoff's comment that if the appraisal, depending on when you're doing it, and it changes. So you had an appraisal done a year ago?
Probably.
About 4 months.
Yeah, it's pretty recent.
Yeah, so that may or may not ever, so you may want to make that similar, and I wish now we had the realtors that used to be in here, but you might make accept the offer contingent upon the appraisal, or a new appraisal, a current appraisal, not the one that was done before.
Did that appraisal include the additional property?
Yeah.
We have two separate prices, one for the property and one for the building.
You know what those are, Reed?
They were around rough numbers, 145,000 for the property and 845.50 for the building. It was right around $1 million combined.
Okay, that's
It was
good.
like
That's
850, 150, plus or minus 10,000.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wouldn't want you to be, I mean, if you had what seemed to be a good offer based on an old appraisal, depending on what happens in the market, it may go up or down, and it may take you a couple of months to sell that, so it should just be on current appraised value, not this historic appraised value, if
But when do
that's
you
what you're
Sorry,
trying.
I'm interrupting. When do you
Sorry.
consider it historic? I mean, it's kind of hard to get a new appraisal every 3 months, or expensive to get a new appraisal every few months.
Well, you just get it when you have an offer. And then you accept, just like if you buy a house, you buy it contingent that the appraisal will come in enough to cover your equity. I mean, so you put that into your contract when you accept it, that it needs to come in within X percent of the appraisal, or not.
Okay. So Reed, can we post that ourselves and list it without
We can.
listing it as with a realtor?
Yep. We can do that due diligence advertising and put a sign up and
Yeah.
put it on websites and make it available for sale without having to contract a realtor.
In fact, it's no different than some of the others that we've done that we've treated as a quote-unquote significant parcel.
Yeah.
Well, it runs counter to my conservative values to pay somebody 6% to sell the property for us. Is that still the going rate about?
It depends. I would never go that. Even if we went with a realtor, I would definitely be for negotiating it down from 6. But hopefully we can do it ourselves.
I have a hard time with paying somebody $60,000
for a few phone calls. Yeah.
Okay, so that was the motion.
So,
With private property in the rental market, but you're all about cutting out private property out of real estate.
So where's the balance?
well, that's a little bit different, isn't it?
I bet that the two realtors that were sitting here wouldn't think it was any different. But
Yeah. Well, if you own a building, you own a building, but everybody has the choice of having somebody help them sell or selling themselves. That seems a little bit different to me, but I understand your concern, your point. One comment on your motion that you haven't finished
That I
making
didn't
yet.
make.
That your suggested motion. I'm a little concerned about putting that into strictly towards the jail.
Okay,
I
let's
wonder
put
if
it
we should.
into a capital account, an open capital account.
For future building.
Yeah, because you also remember, we are gonna have an EOC expense here.
Is Colson in there now?
Figure that out within a certain amount.
I was going to say, what is your time frame?
You need to have money in there with projects that we do.
Can you change your mind?
Yeah, you can.
Because they could say jail today and say, well, you know what, we really need the money for the EOC or whatever. Can they do
Well, it
that?
doesn't make that much difference.
We're actually putting the money in there. It's not an issue, and yeah, I mean, right now we're going to transfer $750,000 in there without an exact specific project, but we need to figure it out in due course.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
And Cindy, the other weird thing about this building is how we acquired the property to begin with.
yeah, and I
Well, it didn't-
I mean, again, defending the real estate profession a little bit, but I guess you would still go through a title company because there are, if I remember correctly, some easements on that parking lot parcel. So it needs to be buyer beware a little bit on that, but
Yeah,
that's.
because the parking lot area is strictly parking lot area. It can never.
There's a, there's a power conduit
There's a pipe, covered irrigation pipe that runs through the middle of that lot.
and electrical.
Pardon?
There should be electrical easement through
There
it
are
too.
the utilities too, but the main one, the big one that runs right through the middle and cuts that property in half is a big irrigation pipe.
And that's the reason it hasn't been used for industrial development.
Do the people in the adjoining building to the south have a right of way from their parking lot to get out to the north? So that could, so there's not an easement that way, okay.
And there's something unique about our driveway because we don't own. Well, we might now.
We do now.
We do now because we bought it.
Not on the driveway. But
Yeah.
That's
That's
good.
right.
Used to be the neighbor's property.
Part of it, you know, we were split.
We had 5 feet, they had 10.
All right. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make it.
Oh, no, yours is great. You just,
Then the motion would be that we offer that the Fiddler's Building for sale, including the new acquired parking. That'll be made contingent upon a current assessment, and that we advertise it ourselves for some period of time before we list it with a multiple listing.
and the disposition.
Proceeds would simply go into a capital account for future disbursement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I assume that means then that we're not doing any improvements on the building to move the renters in or anything. We're just saying no rental right now, we're just trying to sell the building.
Well, I don't want to see us spend $60,000 for a.
That's why
That would be hard to
I want
do.
clarify for sure.
Thank you.
Building people.
Number 18, Alpha. Going to approve our meeting schedule for 2019.
Before you do, we found an error. No, I can't find the paper.
I want to see the meeting schedule doubled, though. I want to see this happen every Monday.
Taskmaster.
Every Monday. And some Saturdays.
You may find a 2-to-1 vote on that.
Should say January 14th and 20th.
14th and 28th.
Which month's that?
So on January, we've got them listed.
Oh,
as-
yeah, 7th, yeah, early.
So if we stick with the, sorry, I'm speaking to the microphone. If we stick to the original schedule, we'd found an error. Typically, we go second and fourth Mondays, and January was listed as 7th, and then 22nd for the holiday. But really, it should be the 14th and 28th, and we will correct
about
that.
the holiday, okay. Okay. I move approval of the Iron County Commission meeting schedule for 2019, noting the fact that the final iteration will have January 14th and 28th. We have 2 meetings, May 28th will be on a Tuesday because Memorial Day holiday on the 27th, and November 12th will also be a Tuesday meeting instead of Monday because of Veterans. Is that right? Veterans Day on the 11th?
Yes.
So that's the only, and then we'll just have 1 meeting in December, the same as we had this year.
Second.
I will just mention there are 2 dates, the April 8th and July 8th that I won't be here, but we'll deal with that when we come. I've got commitments out of the country on both of those dates, but we'll be
It'd be a
fine.
bad commitment in Hawaii or someplace.
Well, I have a commitment in Mexico and a commitment in Brazil.
I was just
Oh, yeah. It's close.
This Brazil thing to pick up one missionary?
Yes, July 9th. I think we're headed to Brazil to pick up a missionary.
That's awesome.
Excellent.
I guess. That's the plan right now. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll try to be here and hope Commissioner Cousins is here so we can duck fish. Commissioner to beat.
19A. Consideration of closing all county offices on December 24th, 2018.
Well, since we're not going to accomplish anything that day anyway, let's just go ahead and get it closed. John, we've had a discussion about possible marriage licenses on that day.
I can
we have
come and
problems
man the
needing to
office or
record.
whatever, but
Well, what if you just
Notify people ahead of time that we'll be closed. In a lot of ways, the title companies like it when we're closed because then they can close too.
Yeah.
So they've been calling and asking.
As far as the marriage license question, I don't think you need to stay there, but have a number, a number on posted on the door.
Okay.
'Cause we don't want to hold anybody up that wants to get married.
No.
But they would have to call you. I mean, you know,
Right.
and you could come in and take.
And Cindy said that would work in the past. She'd be happy to come down and
Cindy could do it.
that's a solution we've done. So
and take care of it. So I'd move the approval of agenda item 19, closing the offices down on 24th and encouraging people to stay home and spend a good Christmas with their family.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Commissioners, just a quick note, in terms of the, I can't remember how we did that last year, so it's just a scheduled day off, but an employee just submits vacation if they want paid for that day, correct? Is that how you've done it?
I can't remember.
If they want to what?
I think it's just an administrative day off.
I think we coded it as like administrative leave or something like that.
Clarify those, that meaning that it's paid or unpaid, I'm not sure.
It's paid.
Paid day off.
It's-
And Commissioner Brinkerhoff had clarified too that for those law enforcement officers that were on duty, what did you want?
I talked to the sheriff about that. We'd simply give them an 8-hour comp time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gary, do you understand that?
And what was the right code, Carrie? Was it administrative? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Just an administrative leave day with law enforcement, or would that be if there happened to be snowplow call out or?
Yeah.
Allow them, like in the years past, are you going to allow them extra time to use it because of the holiday? Like we've allowed them to carry it, or to use it after the first of the year even.
Till March 1st, I think we did last year for
So I
law
just need to know
enforcement.
when you want that day to be used by. I need a use or lose day.
We did March 1st last year, as I recall.
Yeah,
If it goes in as comp, do you have to have a sunset, or do you?
I wouldn't suggest you do that, just because your policy right now is to pay it out.
Right. So if we just add an extra comp day, because comp doesn't expire.
I know, but
right?
Your comp is going to be on your balance, so they'll carry it over indefinitely.
So you're saying have this be a special comp? Yeah.
You want them to use it within a reasonable amount of time, or they're not going to have it available to them.
Yeah.
So you want to code it differently too?
Yeah, you've got people right now that you're struggling to use their leave. You really want them.
Right. To give them more to add to the burden.
Compound the issues you're already having with some of the departments.
Yeah.
So I would decide a day that's like I was saying March 1st or the end of March, the first quarter. Use it by the end of the first quarter. I don't know, but
It might have
and
been
I don't
March
want to put it in their
30th.
balances because as soon as you do that, and that's money in their pocket that if they left employment, it's going to get paid out.
Yeah.
And that was not the intent. That's not. I don't think that's your intention. Is
No.
you want them
Give
to
them their day.
use this to take a day off.
Right. Let's just. I would be good with end of the first quarter. Just.
I'm good with that.
Okay, I think that was in my motion.
That's what I heard.
It was in my second too.
Approved.
Dale's so on top of it, it's amazing.
Do we need it amended? Do we need an amended motion?
No, but I want you to clarify. March 30th or Thirst?
30th.
Okay.
Oh, 30.
31st.
Last day.
Yeah, March
30
is-
days, half September. Yeah. Okay.
Half March.
You said 30, so we're gonna go with that.
Okay.
Okay. Back on track to item number 20. The 2018 surplus.
20A, and I would like to speak to
Oh,
this
did we
one.
already have a 20?
Oh, did we not get to?
No, I don't think we had a 20.
Oh, right, we only.
Back on track. We're back on track.
Mike Worthen had requested there was a Ford F-150, and he was hoping to have that for one of his employees as well.
1994. It's a very old.
It's not on here, John.
No, it's not. It's on the.
It's on the list, on the surplus list, but not.
Right. He sent email this morning. He spoke to Steve Platt about it. 1994 white Ford pickup with turquoise stripes, slated for surplus. Steve indicated it still ran good and was in fair condition. As discussed, I'd like to get it for a seasonal employee we are planning for this coming summer that could use it for OHV trail work. So I'm definitely in favor of keeping it.
Yeah,
we're not going to get much out of it.
Yeah, that was one that didn't make it onto the agenda because it was Friday afternoon when he came around looking for it.
So that should be in the motion to exclude that from the surplus.
So is that accurate then, John, the 3 items that are listed?
Well, plus the other that we just talked about.
Plus the 94 F-150 to Mike Worthen.
Yep.
Or yeah.
Okay. Call for motion on number 20.
Ready? I move that we approve regarding 2018 surplus, the 1999 Ford Explorer, which is extension service surplus, be swapped to the Sheriff's Department for the victim advocate. 2008 Trailblazer is tourism surplus, be swapped to the Sheriff Department for the victim advocate. 2005 GMC pickup, building department returned back to their fleet. 1994 Ford pickup that isn't on the list but we're adding now would be retained and used in the public lands or natural resources department for OHV work. And before I finish, I have one question. Why are we providing a vehicle for the Cedar City victim advocate?
They are still employed through us and managed by the Sheriff's Department. I think the question was they're going to be subject to call out, and in the event that with one vehicle they'd have to respond to the Sheriff's office, pick up a vehicle, and there could even be conflicting times when there wasn't a vehicle available. So the question was just provide them a vehicle to have at the police department for their use.
Police department or sheriff's office?
Well, both. So each one, they would both be, even the advocate that's housed at the Cedar City Police Department is still managed by the Sheriff's Department. They're just having the city doesn't oversee them. It's still the Sheriff's office, so they're still under us.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. My motion stands.
And second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Will that vehicle something that they can use should they be called out, or do they get all-time use of it? I know if you don't specify it.
Right. I'm not sure.
Well, doesn't Lieutenant Schlosser say that? Let's see.
I don't remember what.
For county policy, the CCPD advocate would have to come to the SO and get the other victim advocate vehicle and then drive to the location she needs to go or transport subjects. So it would be.
I think that it's my understanding was they drive their personal vehicle to work and then, or if, they have a call out, they drive their personal vehicle to the office and pick up the call out car. That was my understanding. But it wasn't a take home vehicle.
I think that's what we're thinking.
County policy for take home vehicles it's pretty strict. It's only really intended for public safety.
Right.
So, because otherwise, I think the reason maybe they haven't requiring is because there's some tax implications if vehicles are taken home.
Yeah.
So.
It wasn't worded that way, but maybe what we ought to do is follow up with Lieutenant Schlosser.
Clarification on that with kind of all the departments. Talk about that budget time. Might be a good idea to really take the vehicle home. They go out on call in the middle of the night and stuff like that, but, and this is the type of thing that can lead to false.
Pretty slick chin over there, dude.
Fraud reports, people calling in saying there's abuse, and so it'd be nice to just make sure it's nice and clear who has a take-home vehicle and who doesn't, and what exactly our policy is. So we talked about that at budget time, maybe getting together and rehashing that. So.
Yeah, let's.
That too, because there's times when I know our department, especially with me in particular, that sometimes I take the vehicle home because I didn't get done with that call till 9 o'clock at night, and my house is closer than my office, or I'm leaving at 6 o'clock the next morning. Same time.
Well, let's look at it and then send out a notice by email so everybody gets it. I think that'll be the best way to do it.
It's good to be defensible on that.
Yes. Item number 21, discussion, possible approval of District Court Public Defender contracts for Jeff Slack and Troy Sunquist. Dates updated to January 1st to December 31st, 2019.
Okay, so as outlined, we have the public defender contracts that are up for renewal as of the first of the year. I think, I hope that copies of these were sent. I didn't send them personally, so if they didn't get to you, I apologize, but
we got them.
Okay, great. So really, the contract that I have with me is for Troy Sunquist. It's been fully executed other than just the commission chair signature. It just is an automatic renewal at under the same terms as the last contract. It's my understanding that there's going to be some additional discussion today regarding Jeff Slack's contract, with a copy being provided at the next meeting, which is still going to be in time for the January renewal, depending on what's decided today.
So is he still trying to bank on the fact that his wife puts X number of hours in, which we don't contract with her, we contract with him to do a job.
Right.
As we do the other ones, I'm not sympathetic to raising him above the other group.
And I know that's kind of what had been reached prior, but yes, to answer your question, there was some additional, just another request on his part for further discussion.
Could the other public defenders not give us this big long list of additional hours that their staff or their wife or their dog or their cat or somebody else puts in to load up the hour total?
Yeah, so and to that point, there is a running tracking system in terms of attorney hours and the admin hours that you're referring to. And through October, just for information purposes, Mr. Slack's attorney hours are 1,077, and the other public defender attorney, the attorney's hours for comparison is 862. For admin hours, Mr. Slack 1,585. So there's a lot in comparison to 182 for the other.
But isn't there room for a lot of subjectivity in the way we bill hours?
I believe it's.
Some of them want to bank 15 minutes just to hang their phone up. So.
Yeah, I think in terms of, I think just common attorney practices is in effect there, and I think that's been my understanding in terms of 15-minute increments. And I'm sure there's a lot of subjectivity. I can't speak personally for it, but at the same time, I do know that there's people that can vouch for that. Both public defenders do a good job, but there may be some reason for and justification for Mr. Slack putting in what is a substantially more number.
So a
of
couple
hours.
of questions.
Yes.
Are the attorney rate and administrative rates in the contract, and are they different? And then is there a commensurate difference in caseload between Sunquist and Slack on that would go with the difference in hours?
There, the first part of that question, the attorney hours and the admin hours aren't split out in terms of the contract. It's for services provided.
So is it like a fixed dollar amount per year?
It is.
Yeah.
Yes. So for comparison, the
Slack right now.
Mr. Sunquist, Troy Sunquist, the contract I have with me today, that one's for $77,500, and the contract as it currently stands for Mr. Slack is $82,500, and the reason for the difference in those amounts, I'm not sure, because it was before I was
Well,
involved
Mr.
with
Slack's
this.
been here for a long time.
I figured it was probably something to that effect, but.
Comment, I think we should definitely not take into consideration the admin hours at all. But I did talk to Mr. Slack. He reached out to me, and he said his caseload had gone from somewhere 1,000, 1,100, clear up to 1,400, something like that. Or am I adding?
He had an increase of, he was looking at about a 30% increase in caseload this year. I ran into Mr. Slack. I was dealing with another issue in the building department office and ran into Mr. Slack in the hall. Just talked to me for a minute, and he had some hard numbers of basically his filings where he was requested to be the public defender, and given those cases by the judge, were up about 30%. And I can't remember. I mean, his caseload from last year to this year was up. I mean, it was up 200 or 300 cases. I don't remember exactly what the numbers were.
I added a zero. It was like from not 1,000 or 1,100 to 1,400. It was like.
It was
high twos.
It was high threes to. It was high threes to. It was about 370 maybe, and he was up to about 485. It was a little over 100 more cases.
It was significant.
At this point than he was last year.
Was his caseload any different than the other public defenders? Are they not showing the same increase? And if so, why isn't the judge assigning them proportionately across the board?
It's my understanding that it's been explained. Again, falling back on the crutch in terms of this is all somewhat new to me. I'm still trying to get accustomed to it and up to speed. But workload is up across the board. Is from in terms of hard numbers, I can't provide that. I know there's a report that.
I'm fairly certain that they take every other case. One has even cases, one has odd numbered cases, and so the only difference would be if some individuals, just by the luck of the draw, were more likely to hire private counsel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But on the indigent cases, which is by far the vast majority of all the criminal cases there, it's assigned even odd. I can't remember who has odd numbered and who has even numbered, but it should be, their caseload should be really pretty close.
Right. Well, these are the only two that are up this year, right? So the other.
Yes.
So we're really not considering the others, and Mr. Sunquist is new, so I wouldn't want to consider any change on him, but because of the workload and the hours may, like you say, they keep track of every 6 minutes or tenth
But
of an
we're
hour.
hearing from Mike that the workload should be consistent across the way it's divvied up every other one. So we're already paying him an additional $5,000. Now we're going to add another 1,000, another 100. What's he after? 1,200 a year? Is that what
It's
for $100 a month.
Between. I mean, I think we've really always kind of hung around that 1,200 to 2,500 per year.
So that boosts him up over $6,000 more than Sunquist. So it's immaterial to me how new Sunquist is or how old Slack is. I'm only concerned about the job that they're trying to fulfill with the county. So I'll defer you to a motion, cause I'm not going to be sympathetic.
Well, I personally think there's a difference between the two because of, you know, experience, time with us and everything, so I think that's worth something. And the last I heard, he said, 1,500 or 2,500 would be, you know, that's what he, something to help pay his costs, so. So I'm gonna go right in the middle of those. I would move that we gave him a $2,000 raise, and based totally on well, not totally, because I already said I think he's worth more because of his experience. But then the other criteria is that his workload has gone up, so his caseload has increased so drastically.
Point something out to you.
Yeah, please.
At what point, and I'm not advocating here, I'm just trying to work something out in my mind. At what point do you decide, well, Mr. Sundquist has enough experience now, and now I'm going to catch him up to where Mr. Slack is? Does that ever happen? At what point does he? I just don't. I'm just trying to figure that out.
Well, I know we brought him when. I mean, well, a county elected official, for example, they come in, and because they're elected, they come in the same wage as the one that just left. But I know when we brought in Mr. Sundquist, we did not equal him. At that point, we didn't bring him up equal with Mr. Slack.
So when do you, if ever?
Well, that'll be up to future commissions, I guess. How's that for?
You're not leaving this year. I'm just wondering, like.
Well, when he has more experience. I mean, let's not say him. Just when they had more experience, and you know, and these people don't necessarily stay forever. You know, I mean, so I think it's a little bit. I think it's subject to.
It doesn't make sense at this point. I understand that maybe you want to give someone a trial run, but in my mind, it doesn't make sense to. And I'm not trying to. It doesn't make sense to pay him less or different in my mind.
Yeah.
But that's.
Well, okay, I appreciate that, but we already made that decision when we brought Sundquist on.
I'm just offering you for what it's worth.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
I think when it comes time to renew contracts, if the contractor wants to bring up a negotiation, kind of as Mr. Slack has in this situation, I think that's probably the time to look at it. If I didn't hear any requests from Mr. Sundquist for anything greater that came to us.
It just doesn't, in my mind, they're doing the same job. They're doing the same exact job. You're giving the same duties, both of them do.
Yeah.
And I'm not advocating that you put one person higher, one person lower, or that they get an increase or they don't, but they're doing the same job. They both have the same qualifications. I just don't think that makes sense, but that's just.
And they were hired under the same guidelines, hiring purposes.
Well, I know we had them exactly the same for a long time. We had two that were long time with us, and then and then one left, and at that point, I think if my memory's correct, that's when we actually brought the new guy in a little bit less, and it seems like in the last few years we've changed a little because of the hour. We make them keep track of their hours and submit that to us, and we've had a little bit different negotiations. So I know we all felt comfortable with bringing Sundquist in at a lower amount, and I think it was, even though it's the same job, I think it was based on somewhat on tenure.
So does that mean if I get a public defender, I better hope it's Jeffrey Slack?
I can't hear you, Cindy. So is there a motion?
I moved to give Jeff Slack a $2,000 raise to 80.
And I'll second it just to bring it forward for a vote.
What was the amount then?
He's at 82.
That'd bring it to 84.5.
That'd take him to 84.5.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll vote opposed.
On the subject of their contracts, I was wondering, it's kind of rigid in there exactly when we have to pay them. First Friday of the month. Sometimes that can be right. I usually it's fine, but there's times when it's extremely inconvenient if I have my accounts payable clerk gone, or something like that. I don't know, I wonder if we could have some sort of wiggle room. Of course, I'm sure if we put wiggle room in to help benefit me, they would probably more wiggle room to benefit them, and then we'd end up paying them for the first Friday. I don't know. It's just, it's been a problem from time to time. I don't know. I don't know how you'd even word that, but it's usually before the first Friday we're getting hounded, and we usually don't have any wiggle room. It is what it is. But
So we pay them monthly, right?
monthly.
Can we put them on the same, I know we're on a 2-week schedule, but can we somehow put them on ours? And we have 26 payments, that's gonna be a little bit hard. You can't change them to 13.
It really doesn't work for contracted employees.
Yeah. Well, and I don't advocate giving them 26 payments, but, you know, being
Because we
paid.
literally run it through accounts payable and issue a check. It doesn't go through payroll. If it went through payroll, that would be fantastic.
But yeah, I'll never go through payroll.
Can
no.
you pay it in, say that it's in arrears and it'll be paid by the first Friday of the following month or something like that? Maybe that would look wiggle room?
If you switch to arrears, then there's some kind of.
How many of the days that your payroll is?
No,
or
I'm saying
do
the
it?
first time you make the switch.
But you don't have to do it. You know no later than, so they'll quit counting you and you still have the same process. Or you pay them by the Friday, but if they're gone, then you're not out of contract.
I don't know, like I said, it's not a real clean, I don't know the best way to do it.
Trying to see how it's worded in here, but I'm having a hard time finding the verbiage used for.
Equal monthly installments.
Could you
Are you lunching today?
predate checks for your own convenience and then just wait to deliver them?
Football man. I don't know. Lie today then.
Maybe I mean, this one's got all the signatures, but maybe going forward it'd be something we could just look into and maybe work together on to see if we can get Mike's help too.
Okay, well,
But yeah, let's
something to think about, maybe when we're renewing Troy's.
yeah, that's
Negotiating with them.
that's what I was thinking too. So then again, I have Troy's here, but so do we need to address that one separately than what was already just a motion made and approved?
Well, okay, my motion is to give Slack a $2,000 raise and leave Sunquist $2,000.
What did I miss? Leaving the room a minute.
No, I said that while you were here. What do you think I said?
I thought we gave him $1,200. $100 a month.
That's what you said that we talked about earlier, but when he contacted me, he said, well, you know, 1,500 to 2,500, so I was just going in the middle of that, but anyway, that was my motion, and I guess I better make a second one, and that was already passed, right? So
Right.
Okay, I'll
Yeah.
make another motion that we keep Troy Sunquist at his present contract amount.
And I do have that contract with me, that just needs signature, but I'll bring the next one at the next meeting.
Okay.
And I think we've got copies here, don't we? I've got copies of both of those from the packet.
Well, I think it'll have to be updated with the new amount.
Yeah, so
That's
that we
what-
can sign, well, so we need we've had a motion for approval of Troy Sunquist. Do I have a second?
I'll second in order to bring it forward.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll vote oppose it. If we're going to add another $1,000, we've got a $7,000 imbalance between those two attorneys doing the same job. I think it's a little unprofessional that we let or even encourage people that call in work on us for sympathy for a pay increase. I think that should be handled through HR and through proper standards from evaluation, some job analysis. It bothers me that we're letting the tail wag the dog. So anyway, I'll vote against that. When you call for a vote.
Okay. That
You already voted.
we voted. Okay, so I can sign Troy's. There needs to be an update with Jeff's.
Correct.
Correct?
And if we've got that in Word, maybe we can do that before you leave.
Okay.
Or I can just, I'm not sure what format I have it.
I thought, again, first just getting acquainted with it, but I think the process has been that it goes through, the county attorney has a chance to review it, sign it, and then commission is the last signature. Is that the way you've kind of seen that happen? That's the way it's worked with this Sunquist. That's why everything's signed and reviewed other than the commission chair signature. I think
Actually, you've got a signature by the county commission chair for the attorney as the contractee, and then approval as to form by the county attorney.
Okay.
In other words, not necessarily content. And we can change that, but
that's foreign to me. I'm sorry, you're going to have to...
so the approval as to form means that it's a proper and legal document, but as far as...
Meaning that signature...
It could be $10 million, but that's... The signature is saying... And where's Mike? Approval as to form doesn't necessarily speak to the content, does it?
No, it doesn't speak to the content. It's just saying the form.
That's a proper legal form.
Okay. I mean, whatever works. That's just...
I mean, our legals looked at it, and it's a legal document.
Okay.
Okay.
Afternoon, doesn't it? We'll have lunch. Interested not to come till 1:30.
Oh. Maybe.
You definitely want to finish personnel. What, is this Mike, Daniel?
Where are we? 12:30. So let's do. Let's take care of our personnel issues. Item number 22. Then we've got a couple of other issues, 23 and 24, that are going to take some time. Let's do 22 and then break. Have a lunch break real quick.
Mr. Chairman, could we do A, B, C, and D as one motion and handle E separately because it's not a backfill?
You bet. That would be great. So, A, B, C, and D.
Okay. All right. The first one, A, is for the sheriff's office. Sheriff. Simply requesting the approval of new hire Charles Day as a new patrol deputy with the effective date of December 31st, 2018. This is a backfill of a vacant position. B is under assessor, is requesting approval of new hire Brianne Clark as a DMV technician, effective also with the December 31st, 2018 date. That is a backfill of a vacant position. Under the recorder's office, the request for approval of new hire Aaron Johnson as deputy recorder ownership specialist with the effective date of December 17th, 2018. That's a backfill of a vacant position created by kind of the restructuring associated with the recorder Debbie Johnson's retirement. Part 2 under item C goes along with that, with requesting the approval of the promotion of Adele Lloyd from the Deputy Recorder Ownership Specialist position to Chief Deputy Recorder with the effective date of the current pay period, which is December 2nd, 2018.
And who did Aaron Johnson replace?
So that's, Adele moving from that position to Chief Deputy, Carrie moving from Chief Deputy to Recorder. So, and then item D under COA, approval of new hire Cassie Glazier as a part-time data entry clerk with the effective date of December 5th, 2018. That's a backfill of a current or of a vacant position. And number 2 under item D, approval of new hire Bonnie Backus as part-time assistant cook with the effective date of December 7th, 2018, which is also a backfill.
So the motion under 22 personnel would be to approve A, B, C, and D as presented by the HR.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, E.
Okay, so E has to do with David Nielsen. He, you may remember, he was selected after a recruiting and interview process to fill the web developer position that was approved as a new position back in March of 2018. At that time, when the position was approved, there was discussion and a consensus that the salary that would accompany that was kind of earmarked was $49,787. We actually negotiated a lower starting salary for Mr. Nielsen at that time, with the idea that after 6 months, getting some time under our belts and just having a chance to reevaluate and that he was brought in at $47,652.80. That's his current salary. The idea and the request that's being presented is that we consideration be given to increase that amount to $49,051.23 per year, and with that, with the understanding that after the planned 1.5% COLA that goes into effect for 2019, that at that time it would go up to the $49,787 that was originally proposed and discussed. So that's the request that's being asked for consideration for the web developer David Nielsen.
Okay, so this was all explained to him up front. He was brought in a lower salary. If his 6-month assessment was good, then he would be given this. He's basically been promised this.
I would stop short of saying a promise, but just saying that we would. It was something that I proposed and thought was a good idea at the time, just in terms of a more conservative approach in terms of the money that was allocated, and so he had actually made that request to me this week, just saying, "Hey, I hit my 6-month mark, and is it something that we can look at?" So I've had some discussion, some lengthy discussion with Jared Wilson, the IT director. He is confirmed that that he's working up to expectations. That he believes it is something that is justified and supports, obviously, or else I wouldn't be presenting it. So again, wasn't promised, but something that is believed to be justified and probably a fair a fair request in terms of the work that's being done and for the position.
And
Well,
what
I
was the-
definitely agree with the process because sometimes people leave us in 3 or 4 months, you know, and we need to save some of the money that we cost.
The idea is it was such, you know, as a new position too, we kind of wanted to see how everything
yeah.
fit together. And
What was the original salary? 47.
he was his current amount and what he was hired at was $47,652.80.
Okay, thank you.
What was the proposed?
Proposing that it go up to $49,051.23 with the effective date of the current pay period, which is December 2nd, 2018. Because that we just planning ahead, thinking that after the first of the year that it would then go up to what was allocated originally for the position, if that makes sense. So it's kind of a two-step process. But
Brings him to what the original allocation was.
and Jared, that was something I kind of proposed to Jared, and I assume he discussed that with David. But Jared said that's a fair approach and something that all sides could agree and get on board with.
Okay, call for motion.
I can't read that much.
You can't. Okay. I don't know what he said because I'm deaf.
He said he can't read that much. He's
He
kicking
can't
it.
read that much.
He's
and I
kicking
can-
it to
and
you.
I can't hear that much. We're in good shape here.
I'll be the translator.
Okay, since it was wasn't promised, but because Dave Nielsen has shown by evaluation that he has performed his job properly and as expected, I move that we approve the pay increase as presented to us by the HR director.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. You have the figures.
Yes. Commissioner Blake?
Yes, sir.
Now that you've made that vote, there was something that I wanted to bring up during reports that had to do with the work that David has done. So Cindy Bullock had requested this, and I'm glad she's still here. This is what he has made for county boards. It's actually it's on the webpage, but there's not a link to it yet because he wanted to have a little testing. But if you look up on the screen, so this is opportunity to submit your name for a board, or to ask questions about and a message board that will come to my office, and then as you scroll down, it talks about all of the different boards and lists the names of those involved. Very much open to suggestions on this, but I thought it was a pretty good first stab at what we had talked about. Cindy, any feedback? First glance? It's teeny tiny.
Looks good.
Wonder if I can.
Oh, I'm trying.
That is correct. It's whatever he did is better than what was out there.
I like it. I think it looks good.
Yeah, it's succinct. Let's see. Looks like it. I don't know if the message goes through. Yeah. Okay. So I guess it's not 100% clear that we're looking for people for the boards. It could be more of a feedback on boards, which I guess isn't bad either. But
Yeah, that would be my suggestion. You might want to say
because at the top it does say that, but
on the one where the governor makes the appointments on the state boards. It lists, like if you click on one of those, it would say these are the current members.
Okay.
This is when their term expires.
Okay.
Then you know when you are looking. Oh, I'd like to be involved. Well, maybe I'd really been to be involved in the Ag Protection Board. Oh, but there's no vacancies coming up for 2 years, so if I want to be involved, maybe something else would be it. But I don't know if that's too much information, because it's also nice, even if you're not but for outreach for your citizens to know who is the planning commission, or I have an issue with ag protection. Who's even on that board?
Well, I almost wonder if we want to have not only expiration dates or appointment dates, but maybe even some contact information here. That would start to make this a lot more, I think, useful.
Yeah, and even, and like for if there are criteria,
Uh-huh.
then I think that would also be good information, you know, on the, say, planning and zoning. We generally have one engineer, or we want somebody from the agriculture sector. We try to have someone from the building sector. We try to have someone that's a realtor, so.
Okay.
Even if those hyperlinks, he could make those like that, a hyperlink, and then it could go there. It does get to be a longer, but.
Yeah, it's pretty simple so far, but
Accident and Safety Review Committee is made up of only internal, so I don't know if you even wanna have those on there.
or at least note that, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I was a citizen going into this and I just saw county boards on top, it wouldn't really, it might attract me, but I'm wondering if we should reword that some way so they know that there's opportunities there, possible opportunities.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, or even if you have county boards, click each board for more information, you could click and then it would say, this is what the board is, or if you're interested in serving on any of these boards, please click for more information or something like that.
Okay.
But, and like I said,
Would you?
it may not be a bad idea. I can send in the link to the one from the state.
Yeah.
Because that's pretty robust. It does give them.
Yeah, and I don't know that we want to try and match the state, but the notion, but the principle is good. So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because he's just kind of gone on what Alma and I have said, and he's done a fine job. Okay, thank you.
Thing I noticed just the other day in the paper, Washington County was advertising, and I can't remember the Water Conservancy or what, but they actually advertised in the paper specifically for people that would be interested in being on the whatever board it was.
Well, you know, we are going to have that meeting in January where we don't have departmental reports. If we want to get something like that together, I'd be happy to try and advertise for that.
Because I don't know, with Water Conservancy, the number we got that we have to
yeah.
replace very soon. I'm wondering if we, definitely have this ongoing, but I'm wondering if we should actually do an advertisement.
Yeah, that's I wonder, and we probably have more than just that as well if we were to look over it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to say that some are better than others, but some meet
The workload.
only as needed.
Right.
And some the Water Conservancy Board it's a bigger commitment. They meet quite a bit and.
Yeah.
Well, it's a taxing entity, and it's yeah.
Yeah. I would be very much. I'd be happy to try and get an advertisement together if we wanted to try and. That's probably your most pressing need. But if there were others too, I'd be happy to.
They had a deadline and everything. Then they said, they would consider the names and make the appointment. So.
You've submitted names?
Washington County.
Oh, I see.
Their
Their advertisement.
It said they had a deadline for submitting your name, and then they said we will, and in such and such commission meeting, the commission will consider these names and make the appointment.
Of course, we might want to consider the Canaraville paradigm in that we'd be glad to have people that would be willing to sign up. That's kind of how they work with their town council sometimes. Sometimes they'll have a runoff, but sometimes they're glad to have people that are willing to serve.
Yeah.
So, okay. Thank you, Cindy, for this suggestion.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner.
How much time do we need for lunch?
I'll be till 6 tonight.
No, we don't need an hour and a half.
We're going to go
We'll do it in an hour.
check out the off-site alcohol license, is that?
Well, okay, let's
do 2:15. We can be back in an hour and a half, can't we?
Yeah, well, so we're going to break for lunch and adjourn for now. We will reconvene at 2:15 for items number 23, 24, and non-delegated items. Ready, break.
Ready, break.